Chase throws in the flat. Pass is complete to Clayton. First down and then some. Goodbye, Mark Clayton. To the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Incredible.
This is 365 Sports.
Motion by Oliver. Bucky will go the other way on the option. Pulls it down. Touchdown, Aggies.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
McNabb, straight back. Left side, he's all alone. It's a touchdown. Conrad. A defensive breakdown, and Conrad was all alone. He goes into the end zone for the second touchdown. Nobody was over there.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Maurice Clarett is the tailback, or the single back. He's got it. He's got a touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Hello, end zone. Won't catch it. LaMichael James. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, this young man is a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on a Friday in 365 Sports. Tonight, the second and third round of the NFL Draft. Round one is over. We're going to look at some of the highlights of the first round and a couple of other notes about it as well. Some transfer portal news and notes, too. Tim Brando will join us today at 4. Mickey Spagnola and Scott Dockerman. Mickey on the Cowboys last night taking Mr. Booker, Tyler Booker from Alabama, and then also Scott Dockerman on the draft himself and his thoughts, and also ideas. Now, we'll be on until around 6 or so. Paul will wrap everything up with the top 5. Plus, we'll look at a couple of different poll results that Andrew has already put one of them up, and it will close at 4:15, and then we'll have another one that will close at the end of the show. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. We appreciate your time today. By the way, tonight is the deadline if you want to get your name in the college football transfer portal. I always still seemed like that's always open, but tonight's the deadline to do that if you plan on changing schools and playing somewhere else in the fall. And, of course, we will now summarize the first round. And we're not going to bring up part of the drama last night, at least not yet. Let's get to what happened last night. Paul and Craig with me, Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, and Andrew Valade. Here are a couple of nuggets about last night. One, the SEC and the Big Ten, not unexpectedly, had 26 of the 32 first-round picks, and that would have been maybe 25 or 26 before realignment with some of the incoming schools adding to that mix. Also, that's the most the SEC's had in the first round since, of course, they became a single conference. That was previously done back in 2020 for them. So they had 15. They've had 15 before, 11 in the Big Ten, the most they've had in the first round of any single draft.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you can take 3 off. They got 3 of Texas in the first year, which I know we're going to talk about them in just a second. But there was only 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, and then 2 FCS or something else, and the or group of 5. Ashton Genty was one, and then Grace Zabel was the other that was outside the Power 4 conferences, and then the rest all power conferences, but only 4 total picks from the Big 12 and the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we should give them all playoff spots because they have a lot of NFL draft picks, right? That was some justification I saw, maybe a little bit tongue-in-cheek last night. But, yeah, I think it's been pretty clear for a while. I don't know, 16 years in a row the SEC's had the most picks in the first round, something along those lines. I know it's been, I believe, over a decade now, well over a decade of picks led by that conference. So, not surprised. I mean, it did kind of resonate with me briefly last night of, man, like there's another guy from the SEC and another guy and another guy. And then dawned on me of like, yeah, just this whole makeup of the first draft felt like it was all SEC guys. And then, oh yeah, here's the Big Ten with their fair share as well. So, I mean, look, guys, when the rules started changing 2-3 years ago, this was the grand plan on the other side of all those rules. Was this basically being this mini NFL with these 2 leagues and them separating themselves and being above all else? And that's what all the speculation still revolves around to some extent, just not sure what that actually looks like. But when you have the biggest schools able to flex their money and then go grab guys whenever they want to, the rich get richer. And yeah, it may spread a little bit. Like teams can be competitive with some guys who trickle down because they washed out at Ohio State or whatever. But when you're Texas, and they had, some examples of this last night, you can go get Matthew Golden out of the transfer portal and you already had Kelvin Banks. And so now you can get dip from both worlds. And so this is just going to be more and more commonplace from here on out. This is the way it's going to be. And I'm just curious if we ever get to a year where it hits like 30 between those two. I mean, really, truly. It wasn't far off last night.
I mean, like, again, look, okay, if in a different world, Travis Hunter gets poached by an SEC team, right? If
Deion wasn't the coach, probably would have happened.
And I look at, like, most people aren't as loyal as Ashton Genty is.
Well, in a different world, Travis Hunter doesn't go to Colorado or Jackson State to begin with. If Deion's, and I know this, like, well, if Ohio State didn't exist, then like that, we can't do that dumb of a game. But I mean, he was a Florida guy, so if he had ended up in the SEC, that would have not been a surprise. Well, I mean, he was being pursued by everybody.
He was committed to a way better school until the last friggin' minute.
Yeah, I mean that's debatable, but no, Ashton Genty, if he would have been like most guys, would have taken an offer from somewhere, and so then maybe there's another 2 guys, and then they're at 28 or whatever, 28. So I don't think we're far off from them having damn near the entire first round. I think all the rules play into their favor. I also think they have all the best, talent distributors historically to begin with. So all of those things play into their dominance now of the NFL draft.
Well, one of the things I want to get to, and you talk about all that, and you're true because of how the portal works out. Cam Ward also started. I love this tweet from Incarnate Word. We had him first when Eric Morris was the head coach. Remember that story at West Columbia High School? So you had Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, 1 and 2 that weren't a part of the power conferences, as you guys kind of alluded to. But Cam Ward also was a part of Washington State before he moved on to do what he did at Miami. And Hunter, yes, Jackson State. And on top of that, the North Dakota State offensive tackle, he was out of it. So 3 of the non-FBS, in a way, originally started, and one, the tackle from North Dakota State, ended at an FCS.
And should I, like, Omarion Hampton at North Carolina, like that one's a little bit different. I don't think he would, like, North Carolina's, not that they have resources. He was probably always going to stay there, but like Teteroa McMillan at Arizona, like you have several guys in the first round who were uncharacteristically loyal in the modern era. Well, because there were guys they were definitely tampered with at times.
26 of the 32 players drafted last night were not in the portal at any time. 26. Josh McQuistion from Soonerscoop.com, by the way, had that little nugget. Now, that was from the early portion of when the portal started, Craig, and that might change as we are now deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah, and I think he was trying to make like this very anti-transfer portal point of, hey, look, you stay around and you develop, and I do think there's some validity to that. I also think what you don't acknowledge with that is, yeah, they didn't transfer because they're the best players. They don't have to go anywhere. Of course they didn't transfer. You're the starting quarterback Cam Ward's an example of a guy that did, but he transferred his way up to where he belonged. I mean, clearly a guy who started off an Incarnate Word and becomes the number 1 NFL draft pick didn't start off where he probably should have initially, but hey, it worked out in the end for him. And, that's an amazing story, but he's an outlier because he transferred multiple times and ends up being the number 1 pick. So that kind of, shoots into that narrative a little bit when the top guy is a 2-time transfer. But to Josh's point, yeah, a lot of those guys did not transfer. I think there is something to be said for development. I also think it's what I said at the very beginning. Those are all the best players. Mm-hmm. They were the starting linebacker at Georgia. Where are they going? You're the starting left tackle at Texas. Where are you going? I mean, very rarely are you going to see those guys pick up and leave if it's not a guy who's going up a level. And occasionally it happens. Like we've seen a movement from, Caleb Downs, for example, like in Alabama to Ohio State. So we've seen, examples of that. But yeah, for the most part, I think there's a little something to that. I don't think it's like this, like, wow, like, look at that, like some kind of revelation. I think it's just simply like you're the best at the best. Why are you going to go anywhere to begin with? So, of course, you didn't transfer.
I would change, and I know that most people would be against this, but Houston ought to also get some sort of credit, even if they put an asterisk next to Matthew Golden, because he played there for a couple of years. So he's a former Houston Cougar who also is an NFL draft pick. But I know that that's getting like into the decimal points that mean not much at all.
And I also think it kind of looks a little desperate too if you start to do that. If you start to say like, hey, he played here once upon a time. But I do agree with you to some extent. Like I think Incarnate Word has every right to flex their muscle and have fun with that. And if they hadn't done something like that, that would have been disappointing.
Josh Simmons from Ohio State, the offensive lineman, is another one that went from San Diego State to Ohio State, ended up with the Big Ten. Go ahead.
So, I get them flexing on that, but damn it, I lost my train of thought.
No, but they were. Look, here's the deal. Where was Eric Morris last night?
I don't.
He was sitting right next to Cam Ward on the couch in Green Bay. Yeah. So it's not like Cam Ward forgot where he came from and who went and found him. So
this is what I was bothered by when this all began, the transfer portal. I said this, I remember saying this on this show, of one of the things I didn't like about it is that when the NFL draft rolls around, you're going to see these schools get credit for having the guy for the last year when he was at the other place for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And that's an unfortunate side effect, but that's also why you have record-breaking SEC or Big Ten classes, and you have record-breaking number of NFL draft picks from, most of the top 10 programs all time, because it's all trickling upward in terms of the best players, the NFL talents. And so that's going to become more commonplace. But, yeah, Matthew Golden, who should have been a Houston draft pick, maybe he isn't if he had stayed at Houston, though. Like, that's the thing. But, you do have that where Houston had him there for multiple years, and, like, Texas gets credit for it, And so that kind of sucks. I mean, that's not fun when you raise a guy up and then he's there for, like, Will Howard at K-State. I know they made that decision as much as anything, but just thinking of guys who go off and other school gets credit for it.
There's nothing wrong with I don't want it to be a fake national championship like UCF that one year or A&M one time claimed it, like one of those. But at the same time, I think you should be able to grab on. The bottom line is that's impressive, 26 of 32.
Yeah.
And it took a special player like Genty to be one of the 6 that weren't a part of those 2 monster conferences. Most first-round picks by the teams. At the top, Ohio State. Here's exactly what, Craig, you're talking about. Michigan, Georgia, Texas. I mean, these are the ultimate of logos, except maybe Ole Miss at the bottom, but they had 2. So Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, Texas. Ohio State just won it all. Michigan won it all the year before. Georgia won it all the 2 years before that. Texas knocking on the door. Oregon's always there. And then, of course, Penn State, semifinals, Alabama with their great run that they've had at Ole Miss also with 2.
Yeah, so where are these guys transferring from? Where are they going to go? Of course they haven't transferred that much. They're at Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, like all the biggest logos, as you said, for the most part. So, yeah, I think that was an interesting point to make, but I don't fully agree with kind of like the way it was portrayed.
Here's one other note. Couple of notes about Alabama and Texas who are on that list. Alabama, I didn't realize it was this long of a streak. With 2 players being selected in the first round, they now have had at least 1 first-round pick in each of the last 17 years and 49, almost 3 per year on average during that 17-year stretch. Yes, Saban had an incredible run, but that is still hard to imagine. I don't know who would be number 2 on that list. As far as most consecutive years, whether it's an old USC run or maybe it's Oklahoma or maybe Ohio State or even schools that have dropped off the map. But that is incredible. And on top of that, UT, I knew that it had been a while. Remember, they had a struggle of first-round picks. They had 3 players for the first time since 1980, with Lamb Jones, Johnny Johnson, and also Derek Hatchett. That was the last time, 35 years ago, the Horns had 3 players, which is hard to do, but 3 players in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it is like in 2005, they didn't have 3.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like that team was loaded.
Or any of the teams from that
2009, like they didn't have 3 in that. That one really surprised me because if you had told me that either one of the last 2 teams that won the national championship and the one that lost to Alabama had less than 3 picks in the first round, I'd have been like, no, those teams were stacked. But the part of the thing is that one of the reasons they won in 2005 is they had draft picks in pretty much every round, and not everybody had that. But yeah, that was super surprising to me.
And by the way, Craig, before you go on with that, there are others, of course, who have had monster runs as far as most first-round picks. Ohio State, I believe, has the most in the mid-80s as far as overall first-round picks.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have bet on that if I had been asked, you think Texas has had 3 or more first-round picks in the last 20 years? I would have just assumed so, yeah. But seeing that, I mean, there's Matthew Golden. He's an example of one of those transfers, although to Texas's benefit. But, yeah, I would have thought that had happened previously, at least a couple of occasions. So, hey, you make the national championship tournament and the game 2 years in a row. I think you should you've gotten a lot of great transfers in. You've recruited a bunch of 4 and 5 stars on your own, and you've homegrown them like Kelvin Banks for the last several years. Yeah, I mean, you should be having draft classes that are historic, and they're enjoying themselves right now. I mean, Oklahoma was noticeably absent last night. It's another thing that you start to add up the check marks on Brent Venables' tenure, and you go, what's not gelling right now? And it was noticeable to me as a fan that there was no first-round pick. Wasn't even a hint of a first-round pick last night for Oklahoma when they had been just, year after year putting those guys out for the most part. So Texas is now in that mode where they're just churning out NFL players, and I'd have to imagine they've got more in the league now than they've ever had before, and it's probably a pretty significant number. So, yeah, Sark's doing a great job with the talent, and they're benefiting from the current environment as much as anybody.
All right, of some of the nuggets. Also, one other note about Ohio State. With Egbuka being drafted, the Ohio State team, the 2001 Buckeyes, have now 5 first-round picks in the last 4 years with Wilson, Olave, Smith and Jigba, Harrison, and Egbuka. They all 5, and that doesn't include what they'll have here soon with Jeremiah Smith. That's
5 what?
5 first-round picks in the wide receivers.
Wide receivers is the key, yeah.
I'm sorry. In the last 4 years, we always knew that what Hartline has been unbelievable at recruiting and wide receivers, and now there's just another year, another first-round pick from the Buckeyes from that same team in 2021.
Yeah, that wide receiver is in need of clarification there because they've had a lot of first-round picks, but the wide receiver recruitment, they've been getting credit for that for a while now, and they've done an incredible job in terms of producing talent at that position, and Brian Hartline deserves all the credit that he already gets for it, and then some. And Jeremiah Smith, I mean, he might damn well be the number 1 overall pick in a couple of years. I mean, we'll see. There's a long way until he gets drafted, but he's got that kind of talent, and there's some that already believe he could have gone out this year and been, a first-round type of talent as a true freshman, which you've heard. Like, we heard that about Adrian Peterson. We've heard that about Derrick Henry or somebody like that, but you don't hear it every year. You don't hear it all that often, but he's a guy that you hear that about.
Yeah, I think it'll be Carnell Tate is the one who's probably going to have to carry the first-round streak this year. And he's a really good player, and he was the 3rd wide receiver last year. He'll be the 2nd one this year. But, the 2nd wide receiver is usually better than most teams' number 1 all across the country because Brian Hartline's the best position coach in America. Now he's the offensive coordinator too. So, I think we'll see if Carnell Tate can keep that going because he would be the draft eligible one.
Unless somebody transfers there. Between now and someone asked about who are the top 5 all-time: Ohio State, USC, Alabama, Notre Dame. No surprises, but this one here is very impressive. Miami's 5. Now, we know they flooded the NFL from back in the early 80s when they made their run, when they won the national title, and then, of course, had the incredible run. But to be 5th ahead of some like Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, Penn State, Nebraska is impressive because they've done that in a lot shorter amount of time. Florida State, by the way, I did look for them, Paul, in that list, and they're 12th, which is still impressive, behind Texas, which is 11th.
Miami's really impressive because if you look, they have like 20 consecutive years of good, 20 consecutive years of bad or mediocre. And most of it came from that 20 consecutive years. And the teams that you mentioned, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and all that, before that 20 years had 30 to 40 years of consistently putting players in the NFL when there were, more drafts or longer rounds and all that stuff.
But they were still only first round.
But still only first round picks. But
there
were less first round picks and all that. So for Miami, it's really impressive because they did a whole lot over a relatively short amount of time compared to the Michigans and Ohio States and Oklahomas of the world.
Yeah, and they haven't done anything in the last 3 or 4 years, I guess, in terms of the first-round picks. They haven't had anybody up until Cam Ward last night. The last guys were in 2021, so it had been 4 years without having any first-round picks for them. And even still, they're sitting there in the top 5. So, that's pretty impressive. And, they're one of those schools that is more of a new booty than like Michigan and Ohio State, certainly, but in the run that they've had, even if they didn't have 3 or 4 extra decades to play off of like some other schools have, I mean, they had as much explosive athlete draft pick, potential star type players as anybody's had. So it's not a shock to see them sitting in there.
We'll have a little bit more on tonight. We'll get to that. But what was your number 1 take outside of the Colorado quarterback and Shadore Sanders? What was the number 1 take you had from the draft last night in the first round? Anything that trumped that in your opinion?
I will say, first of all, I go back to Miami. I wanted to touch on them real quick. I mean, between 2001 and 2004, they had
25.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. They had 19 first-round picks in like 4 drafts.
Thank God it wasn't 35.
That's how
we'd
you
still be here.
make up for like 4 decades of not playing.
No, it's insane. It's insane.
I don't know that'll ever be. I mean, I don't know who's even close to doing that, but they had from 01 to 04, They had 19 first-round picks. That's insane.
4 or 5 a year.
Yeah, again,
4 or 5.
2001. I don't care what comes along or whatever.
They had 4 number ones in that draft.
Yeah, we'll be the best team ever created. And those guys that went in 04, I don't think they were all on the 01 team for the most part.
Well, yeah, if you were a freshman on that 01 team, you watched as your senior class had 4 first-rounders. Your sophomore, or I guess your second year there, you saw them have 5 first-rounders. Your junior year, you saw them have 4 first-rounders. And then you and your senior buddies came together for another 5 first-rounders.
Yeah. So it was unbelievable.
Ohio State, Georgia, the most in one first round with 5. As far as overall players taken, with 15, they had 5 in that 2022 draft. But that's 6 from Miami in 1 year is rather impressive. Alabama had 6 in 2021. Those are the most ever in the first round with 6.
So,
all right, so back to what I was asking before you started getting into the first-round picks of what Miami did. What, in your opinion, was the biggest story last night from the first round of the draft?
I think it's Jacksonville, going for it early on, with Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, trying to say hey, we're not your father's Jaguars anymore. We're gonna make aggressive moves and go get plus players. And I thought it was Shadore Sanders. I think those are the 2 big stories.
Yeah, it's Shadore Sanders.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think it's close. In terms of just gossipy type of news, in terms of, he's not even the second quarterback taken. Another team traded up to go get Shedeur, right? No, it's to get Jackson freaking Dart is who is to get. So, between the home setup that we talked about right before we left the show yesterday, I left the show yesterday. If you had told me he wasn't going to get drafted at all, I would have said, BS, I'll put up 100 right now. He's getting drafted. He may not get drafted top 5 or top 10, but he's going to get drafted at some point. For him to go completely undrafted, well, that means, for one, all of those rumors may not have been true in the buildup, but a lot of those rumors about his attitude and just how he kind of came across, clearly there was something to that. There's a lot of smoke in pre-draft run-ups, but there's also some fire. And so clearly there was some fire going on with Shedeur and the way teams viewed him, because they all passed. Some of them passed twice. So, and then one of them jumped in, like I said, to maybe get him, and then said, haha, just kidding, it's Jackson Dart. So that to me is by far the biggest just whoa from yesterday. But yeah, Travis Hunter, the Jaguars being aggressive and jumping up to get him, I thought was an interesting move by the Khan family, but one that makes a lot of sense, and gave up a lot, but I can see where they were coming from with that. So yeah, I think Travis Hunter will be a big star in Duval, and hopefully they can right that ship. But they'll definitely sell a lot of jerseys in the immediate part. I'm just curious, how they use him. But yeah, Colorado was kind of the story of the draft last night with those 2 big stories.
So there's a couple of things that I found very interesting. One, the Baltimore Ravens continue just to crush this.
Oh yeah,
like the Pittsburgh Steelers used to do.
Yeah,
yep.
By not doing anything.
But they sat there and they're like, oh, we already have a secondary that has Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, and Kyle Hamilton in it. Hey, Malachi Starks is there. He's been the best safety in the country for 3 years. He started as a freshman for Kirby freaking Smart. I bet he can probably play here in Baltimore. Let's go get him. And so they draft Malachi Starks, who's a fantastic player. The Steelers, though, the team that would be right behind them in that division right now, does not have a quarterback and could have taken either Jackson Dart or Shadore Sanders at 21, or Tyler Shuck or Jalen Milroe or whoever they wanted to take. But Shadore Sanders is there for the taking, and they passed and went with Derek Harmon, who's the eventual replacement for Cam Hayward, who's in his age 36 year. But the Steelers are banking on a dude to sign with them right now, and Aaron Rodgers, who A, has not been good for 2 years, B, doesn't seem like he's all that enthusiastic about getting back to it, and C, is a nut bar. So that is a very un-Steelers thing to do, to roll the dice in this fashion, and they don't have a pick until much later, and they're not a team that classically trades up, and to trade up to get Shedeur or Tyler Shuck or any of the other quarterbacks that might go in the second round, they're going to have to be pretty aggressive. And I do think Shedeur will go off in the first 5 to 7 picks tonight.
You know what I want?
Maybe.
And if he does, then give him some time. Give him, because one of the complaints, and you saw this, and I usually turn the sound down a little bit. I really do, because you can get so much almost information that makes your brain freeze. But and I'm not going to follow the same narrative that I saw throughout the night, but I did see a lot of people who were saying, hey, by the way, other people are being drafted. Aaron Rodgers, remember the drama when he fell to 24 back when he was coming out of Cal, and there's always that. But Cam Ward is such a great story. The number 1 overall pick, who was a 0-star out of high school and all this other stuff. It is like his name's called. They don't even interview him up on the big stage. Then next thing you know, off to the side they do. But to do this pick after pick, yes, it's a story, but it almost, in my opinion, took away from the 32 guys that were being picked.
I guess maybe I just am accustomed to TV networks doing what TV networks do, so I wasn't surprised at all by their coverage.
Oh, not surprised, but I just thought that was something. I know where you're coming from, but Cam Ward got plenty of attention leading into the draft. I get he didn't get maybe interviewed on the stage, but he's been talked about ad nauseum as the number 1 overall pick. I understand that, and Shedeur is a unique case. So, like I said, I understand where you're coming from, but also, what is everybody talking about while he keeps falling? They're not talking about Derek Harmon. They're talking about, oh, damn, they didn't take Shedeur. So they're going, you got to understand, these shows and stuff now, they go off as much off what social media is talking about, for better or worse. And so you should know, you're all over Twitter. That's what everybody was talking about. So that's kind of, for better or worse, like I said, that's what direction a lot of times these shows can take. But I think you also got to understand, it was shocking. There's a lot of people that expected him to be picked. I'm not justifying. I'm just saying, there were also analysts that were saying he was not going to be picked last night. Not as many, but there were some that said, be prepared for this. He's not going to go in the first round.
Okay. Fair play to them. But I'm just saying, the longer that draft went on and the more he was sinking, that was the story. That was the Aaron Rodgers sitting in the green room. He's just fortunate he wasn't in the green room. Mm-hmm. He's fortunate they decided to go to Canton and make their little creative playground for him to sit in. And that ultimately didn't work out well for him either, but thank God he wasn't in the green room for his sake, right? Because that camera never would have left.
Will Johnson and Jalen Milroe were still there.
Yeah, they were still hanging out, but we saw them less and less, as it kind of became clear. And then, but I'm totally with you, but I was shocked to not see him get picked in the first round. I really was. So I was kind of hanging there on the picks going, damn, is this really going to happen? And sure enough, you get there with about 5 picks left and you go, damn, he's really going to go totally undrafted.
Yeah, and that's even after New York went back up in the first round. And then you're like, okay, then to kick him in the nuts, they take Jackson. That's not why, but then you say, okay, they're going to go back up and pick a quarterback, and it's Jackson Dart. For his sake, I hope that his name is called. I know a lot of people, there's anti this and that with Dion or the Sanders or whoever, even with Shedeur. But here is Shadore Sanders after the round. They had the party. They still did their thing. But here's a very short clip of him addressing those who were with him in Canton, Texas.
We all didn't expect this, of course, but I feel like with God, anything possible, everything possible. I don't feel like this happened, for no reason. All this is, of course, fuel to the fire. And under no circumstance, we all know this shouldn't have happened. But we understand we're on the bigger and better things. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to be happy regardless. Legendary.
I think that Dion knew that something was really kind of a problem when the Saints, I think it was at 9, didn't take him, and then there was another team that they was looking for a quarterback. But there he is. Good luck to him, whoever gets him tonight or this weekend.
I can't imagine, for one, I can't relate to him in any way, or whatever ego or lack thereof he may have. It's clear he's got some level of ego. You got legendary on the back, all these things, the Cash Money SS, logo and all of that ready to go. So we know there's an ego and a confidence there that I can't relate to, but I could absolutely relate to just seeing the disappointment and feeling like that disappointment. I know some people were reveling in it and enjoying it and feeling like it was the greatest thing ever. And part of me, the little devil on one shoulder was like, well, this is humorous to some extent, like given the characters involved and like all the talking and this and that. People are pulling receipts on Dion from from whatever that was, like a year ago, talking about a
top 5 pick.
Yeah, he's talking about his son being a top 5 pick and talking down to another guy, like clowning on his kid. And so all those chickens came home to roost last night. But yeah, I couldn't help but the other part of me just feeling like, golly, that's got to be the most embarrassing thing ever. Like, you're still going to get your money. You already have money, quite frankly, and you're going to get drafted tonight at some point. I don't know how early or late it will be, but my gosh, like, even for a guy who probably doesn't think he can do wrong all that often, like, that had to be a really humbling moment, you would hope, for him last night, and certainly at minimum a driving force in whatever comes next. So
yeah, he mentioned that too. And then it maybe at times you fall, whoever it is, and you end up with a better situation.
Yeah. I mean, the Browns have a couple of picks tonight.
They have the first pick of the
very
second
beginning
round
of the draft.
Yep.
So if he were to get past them somehow or another, when they got 2 picks in like the first 5 choices, like that would be shocking.
Yeah. And one of the things that's weird, every year about draft time is it's months. It's so long. It's paralysis by analysis in a lot of cases, but everybody is like hyper aware, or you like start nitpicking about things. And I get, like, there are some things that, he holds the ball too long. He takes a lot of sacks, but I think a lot of those people they watch film. They don't watch games, which is a little bit of a different thing. Like when you're watching cut-ups, like situationally, you're not really in the moment of the game. And I can speak for, I think, everybody in this room. We've probably watched more full Shedeur games than a lot of the scouts have, because they've got to watch a billion things. But what I will tell you about Shadore Sanders, and this is what surprises me about the overall evaluation from the football people, is when you have an offense that can't run the ball at all for 2 straight years, and you have to tell him every night that we're not going to win unless you have at least a good game, and you probably have to have a great game. And they went from, they only had 4 wins 2 years ago. Then they went to 9 wins, and they did all that with him not able to have a bad game and get bailed out by the run game. But
it's not like he didn't have weapons.
No, but he
didn't have a lot of time.
But like, I'm not trying to take away from those weapons. I mean, he had the best one in the world in Travis Hunter and some really good wide receivers who are going to get drafted later on. But what I'm telling you is that if you look at, Cam Ward had Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez. So if he's ever off or, not hitting the zone, they could turn around and hand the ball off. Jackson Dart had Quinshon Judkins for a year. He had 3 different good running backs last year. They could run the ball. And those are the 2 guys that got drafted ahead of him. He did not have that luxury. Tyler Shuck had that luxury everywhere he was. Louisville, Texas Tech. Shedeur never had it. And I think that's something that's of note.
Yeah, but I think that's also been the first thing that everybody does say about him. So it's not like that's any sort of surprise. So the fact that should be factored in to that story. And the fact that people do know that, because that's the first thing you hear in terms of, hey, give him a break in some cases because of this. And they all say, yeah, we know, but we're not taking him anyways. Like, there's something deeper than just I believe that he had some bad interviews. I believe that his ego probably chased some people off or whatever personality trait that isn't agreeable to some teams. Like, clearly there's something there. Hell, Adam Schefter's reporting today. Don't be surprised if Tyler Shuck goes ahead of him.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Oh, man, all bets are off now.
So, like, we don't know how far he could slide, but I agree with Paul in that the dude's a talent. I don't think he's like just some bum that somehow took Colorado to 8 wins and it was just on Travis Hunter and Travis Hunter's shoulders alone. I think he's a player that's got a lot of potential, but there's clearly more than just, is he a good player? Is he not? That's coming into play. And look, this was the weaker draft class. All along it was said that there's 1, maybe 2 first-round quarterbacks. There was 2, and there was barely 2, last night. So it's not surprising when you look at it from that standpoint, but I just think all of the hype and a lot of that self-generated, that came back to bite him in the ass last night in a major way.
Halloween. Thank you, Craig and Paul. Halloween. Sanders is too much attention. NFL teams don't want that in the locker room, especially. And then when you're not very talented, I think you put up the trash can in that particular game.
Okay. Some don't. Others don't care.
And my God, you have diva wide receivers.
There's 32 teams. And look, this year of those 32 teams, only about 6 of them genuinely needed quarterbacks of the future. Cleveland, New York, Vegas, but like
Pittsburgh.
But Vegas has Geno Smith. They're paying a bunch of money to.
Speaking of Geno Smith, go ahead, finish.
But some of them, Seattle is a team that would make sense for me to draft him at some point because they have Sam Darnold, but they just committed a bunch of money to Sam Darnold. So,
well, that's the thing is there's a lot of teams that don't really need a starting quarterback right now.
Yeah.
If you look around the league, a lot of guys have just freshly drafted people or they have veterans in place. So there's not really an ideal set. There's not a bunch of landing spots you could possibly. I think he'll go to the Browns right off the top tonight. I do. I think that they've got 2 picks in the first 5, right? As first 4 or 5. I think they'll draft him, and this will end pretty quickly tonight. But if they don't, then my gosh, how long does it go?
Kim Coulter, 2 rounds tonight, by the way, so another 4 picks tonight. Kim Coulter, he texted me this last night that he thought Shedeur was kind of a Geno Smith. Geno Smith turned out to be a 10-plus year veteran and has started recently, and back and forth, the former star at West Virginia.
And Geno Smith had some growing up to do, too.
Yeah, he did.
Well,
now, the Raiders go get him to be their starting quarterback for Pete Carroll rather than draft a Shedeur or do something along those lines. So, I think he'll turn around and probably have a pretty good pro career. But given all of the buildup, all of the talk from his side of the fence and then the other side of the fence, there was a lot of just people eating that up last night and enjoying every moment of that. And on his side, obviously that was one of the worst nights of his life. And you hate to see that for any guys, but maybe it humbled him a little bit. If not, nothing ever will. That's for damn sure. But it certainly, either way, it's going to drive him, and we'll see what kind of a player he turns into. I'd expect we hear his name pretty early tonight, but that was definitely one of the major stories from last night.
Everybody has probably had a time in their life where they feel like everybody's looking at them because of disappointment or because of failure or both or whatever. Think about it when it's the entire country. And again, he also likes that limelight too. But last night did not go well. One note on the draft, and then we take a break. Tim Brando today, a little bit after 4. Up until the draft went to 7 rounds. The the team with the overall draft picks in 1 year was 1984 Texas with 17. They had 17. That's the record. The draft, of course, is now just the 7 rounds. It was much longer than that. When we come back, we'll look at a couple of other notes, sports notes. Also, later in the show, we'll grade Paul's mock draft. It might be a better way of putting it. That and more. Thank you for your time. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. As you get older, when you start to creep in between 40 and 45 and 50, your testosterone level can drop. In fact, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. The one that gets a lot of attention is sex drive and ED, but there's so much more that goes with that, including when you feel just constantly either tired, no energy, you're lethargic, something's missing, and it could be your testosterone. Dr. Ken Petty can help you out. Contact them, pettycliniclowt.com. They will get back in touch with you, set you up to get your blood work. Dr. Petty will get the results, look at your testosterone level, and if it is too low, maybe very low, he could put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be and used to be, need to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
On at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get the 2024 Ram 3500 diesel 4x4 for just $56,800, or drive home a 2025 Ram 1500 for only $35,900. Big trucks, big savings, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Big savings, legendary Jeeps at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Couple of college football notes, and then also a few other nuggets on college football. Eddie Walls from Florida International, edge rusher, has committed to go to Houston with Willie Fritz, who, by the way, Willie Fritz is going to join us. I believe it's next Tuesday. Houston coaches a bunch of schools in their spring football coming up this weekend. CBS Sports had Walls, and I got to admit, I had not heard much about him, ranked as the best available edge rusher. That doesn't mean he was the number one edge rusher, but the best available edge rusher, a huge position at any football level at this particular time until he made the decision. Here's the one that is, I don't understand what I always have asked this question. Is this in the best interest of young men, women, whatever sport, that the transfer portal is so fluid?
You can't, but like, that's just, it's a question that if a guy does it one time and it becomes a great thing for him, then the answer is yes. But this example, no. There's not a yes or no answer to that.
No, this is the example that is this what's best for TJ Finley? If he ends up doing something and ends up playing this year and somehow you're talking about red flags. So Tulane quarterback TJ Finley is about to, it appears, somebody will grab him, be in his sixth program. Sixth program. LSU, Auburn, Texas State, Western Kentucky, and Tulane. Is that six? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's six. That would be six to whoever's next. You say seven? Maybe there's a school I'm forgetting. LSU, Auburn, Texas State, Western Kentucky, and Tulane.
Okay, so that'd be
five.
six. Okay.
But still,
yeah,
sixth program. And, hey, he still has eligibility left. He can still transfer. He enters before the portal ends tonight. So that's the opportunity. And I don't know, maybe it's not my – it's none of my business, but is he learning anything from this but bolting?
No. I think there's some things to flesh out. Why is he available right now, guys?
Got in trouble.
Yeah, he got in trouble. He stole a truck. So he was suspended and kicked out of Tulane. So that's why he's available for a sixth time.
Now, he would tell you he inadvertently bought a stolen truck off Facebook Marketplace. Now, here's the thing. Even if that's true, I would not want him on my team because my quarterback can't be dumb enough to buy a truck off Facebook Marketplace.
Right. So,
but that being said,
maybe somebody out there is going to take a look at him. But I mean, how much further can you go? You were at LSU, or you were at Auburn, you were at Texas State, you were at Western Kentucky, and you didn't even last a semester at Tulane. So I don't know who's out there clamoring for a 24-year-old quarterback, 23, 24-year-old quarterback who just got accused of stealing a car after not lasting a semester at the 5th school that he's been a part of. So is this good for TJ Finley, to answer your question? No, nothing's good right now for TJ Finley. And this is why I said what I said at the beginning is he's not the rule. He's an example of, when it goes really badly, but this is not by any means the typical athlete's path. I mean, yes, I know we can poke fun at the guys who have transferred 2 and 3 times, but the only reason he's available for School 6 is because he allegedly stole a truck and he got booted from Tulane. So, no, he is not a guy who's probably doing it the best way for TJ Finley. He's not doing anything, it seems like, in the best interest of TJ Finley. And that's just why I kind of balk a little bit of, like, he shouldn't be held up as this example of why the transfer portal's bad. Because I don't think most cases are like this. But I do agree with your sentiment.
The average transfer portal are 3 teams, and this is 6. So he's got double that number.
Yeah. I mean, so he's an example of when it's really not a good thing, I guess. But I don't think that's a sweeping judgment of the entire transfer portal. But there are people who are clearly taking advantage of it and moving around too much, probably for their own good. And he's a story that I don't know where the ending is for him, but yeah, it's ridiculous that he's even eligible to keep moving around at this point.
He will be known for 2 things: how many teams he ends up going to, transferring to, playing for, and also torching a team in Waco, Texas back in 2022 for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a Texas State win against a team the year before that had won 12 games.
And he did get his degree. I mean, that's why he was transferring from Texas State a couple years ago. So, I mean, you say, was it good? He found a way to get his degree. I don't know how, but he did, because I don't know how the transfer credits and all that work when you're moving as often as he did. But apparently he got one. So I think he'll need that very soon. And I don't know what he's facing as far as, jail time or anything like that. But hopefully he gets that worked out for his own sake. But, yeah, he's a guy who is the Mount Rushmore of how the transfer portal can be a little bit too funky for sure.
So college football leaders met, remember, this week, and there was a couple of notes that we've seen from different national writers about what was being discussed, including this one from Ross Dellinger yesterday evening. College football leaders met. No decisions yet on the future format of when they expand, which they will, the college football playoff most likely to 16 teams. The fact that this is according to Ross's opinion, the Big Ten and SEC have not rammed, basically not through, but down the throat of multiple automatic qualifiers in the 4-4-2-2-1 model is a clear sign that compromise is afoot. Now, whether it gets to that point or not, 4 from the Big Ten, 4 for the SEC, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, and 1 group of 5.
Yeah, and then he follows this up by saying that there was a proposal based on the automatic qualifiers being flexible based on past playoff performance and
bullshit.
Other thing. Exactly.
No, I saw that.
So, but he said also that one was not likely to get through either. So what I'm thinking here is that when he says compromise is afoot, that whatever things that the Big 12, ACC, and the group of however many now conferences, group of 5, threw over the wall worked in slowing down this push. And I think the argument that is the best, now granted it's selfish, I'm the one who's been making it the whole time, is what eventuality are we trying to guard against here? Why make this automatic when it's barely going to happen? And so, and also I do think that maybe the PR on this is out there of I think most people don't really like this.
I think it's the PR is the number one thing. If it wasn't for bad PR, they would have pushed it through and not cared about it. The only thing they're reacting to is the bad PR and probably some of their typical agreeers, or in some cases lapdogs, are even I don't know, that kind of sucks for the sport, doesn't it? And then that's when you go, oh wait, this guy who always agrees and carries our water for us even is saying that this isn't a great idea. Wow, maybe we're off the mark on this. And so I think that they realized they were a bit more off the mark on the pulse of college football fans. And it wasn't well received to the point of maybe some damaging backlash. Now, I'm sure they'll give it another go at some point in time, just won't be right now on trying to force their way. I'm with Paul of like, if history dictates, and I see these water carrying accounts of like, for people that bring up when it wouldn't be dominated by the SEC and Big Ten, it's like, oh, it's only happened like twice. So yes, and then even more reason, why would you need to ensure it? If it never happens naturally, then what are you afraid of? It's just wanting to eat up more power, more spots, more control, more money, and imbalance the playing field that much further than it already is. And so we know what they're doing, but I'm glad that there was enough blowback that they're not moving on it apparently right now. And I don't think that'll be the end of this story. But I don't know. I mean, outside of just pure control and greed, which is enough of an answer for most topics.
Yeah,
but outside
you
of that,
the whole thing. Yeah,
like why do you need to do that, Greg Sankey? Like, why do you need to do that, Big Ten? Control, power, greed, money.
Sorry for my language earlier. How in the world can any of these people sit in a room and even have the idea that previous success or not should be a part of the year that they're playing to decide a championship?
Because that's the only thing that they have to cling to on the years of, like last year for the SEC of, oh, well, this big conference kind of bit us in the ass a little bit here in that, we beat each other 3 times in a lot of the cases. And
then
there's some bad losses. Yeah. But that's what they have to, like, that's what they can say. And less intellectually developed people will go like, well, they're always there. I mean, you never count out the SEC or the Big Ten. And you're like, well, okay, that was fine. They had a run, but sports are cyclical. And, the NFC East used to have like all 4 teams were always in playoff contention. And the one that didn't make it sometimes was 9-7 or 10-6. They would all get in there. And then they sucked for a while, and then they could be good again. That's how sports works. You go across anything that the SEC just off a period of dominance. The Big Ten's won the last 2 national championships. Okay. But, again, things always change in sports. And so to set up a system where you don't acknowledge that fact is just silly.
Well, they're setting up a system where it won't ever change.
Yeah.
And the difference between all of those sports, and usually there would be I guess in some ways, the Big Ten's now, they won the last couple. That's great. Out of, the comparisons of the SEC, it's a drop in the bucket, but it is significant to some degree. The problem is they're looking eye to eye. It's not like the Big 12 won the last 2. That would be significant.
Yeah.
The ACC winning the last 2, that would be significant. It's the other conference that's just like them that wants the exact same thing they do. So all they got to do is like, hey, together, we've won the last 25 of these damn things. And so, I can see why you'd lean into that argument because it benefits you greatly, and it's very convenient to use that argument. And I think it's a lame-ass way, but when we talked about this the first time months ago, I totally understood where they were coming from of you've got all the power, I'm looking at it not from how I would operate, which is what's best for college football. I'm looking at it like if I was Greg Sankey, I'm doing whatever I can to help my conference. Yeah, I'm going to push automatic playoff bids, and I'm going to cite data that reinforces what I want because that's what my job is to do. But when you take off your jersey and you just look at it as a college football fan, that idea freaking sucks. And it's overkill greed, and it's overkill trying to rig the system. But the problem is that the loudest voices are often from that side of the argument because they have the most voices and the most power and the most control already. So, it should be pretty simple that this isn't the best for everybody, but a lot of these decisions aren't being made for the best of everybody. I don't think this goes away, but it does for at least the time being. And so for at least now, power and all of that didn't win out. The actual thoughts of college football fans and people who love the sport came into play and made a difference. And so that was refreshing to see that. I just wish it would be like that more often.
Just around the corner, we'll hold a couple of more of those things, Garrett, for the 5 o'clock hour if we can. We'll have Tim Brando, Fox Sports, including 2 people that he knows or knew. One, Mike Patrick, very well, and also the other, by the way, is Lee Corso in the retirement after the first game day later on this year. Kim Coulter, thank you for the super chat, $1.99. It is Brando Day. And there he is with his Texas Tech little note off to the left. Thank you very much for the super chats. We'd appreciate them whenever you can. We'll put them up on the screen. When we come back, Tim Brando, we appreciate your time today. Again, this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. Tomorrow, the football team is having their last workout, and they're calling it the Baylor Blitz. And McLean Stadium, the Baylor Club, which is located inside of McLean Stadium, is going to have all sorts of special type festivities, opportunities for you to become a member if you're not already. And if you are a member, take advantage of it because you can watch from inside the Baylor Club. And, of course, some of the suites will be open. It's pretty much locked down for the most part. But that's what they're going to have. They have fantastic food. It's a club. And you can go there if you want to have a drink. If you will go there and have a drink and then dinner. If you want to go on special nights like when there's steak or lobster or shrimp or what it might be during lunch too. And then sometimes they have a spectacular buffet with all the trimmings, including prime rib at the end. It's the Baylor Club. Tell them 365 Sports sent you, or tell them you watch us on 365 Sports, and there's always something a little extra for you. The Baylor Club. If you go to join as a member, tell them we sent you inside McLean Stadium.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
There are a plethora of topics we'll have with Tim Brando, Fox Sports, including a couple of great names that he worked with. We'll get to that a little bit later in this segment. But, Tim, thank you for your time. You're on with Craig and Paul. David Smoak as well, 365 Sports. So what did you experience driving through Waco yesterday?
I thought I was in South Louisiana, like 10 times, on a really bad frog strangler. That's what I felt.
Yeah, that storm, it came blowing through, man. Yeah.
And it followed me all the way to Shreveport. It did. Flat followed me all the way there. I think we pulled off at a by the way, Valero. I played in San Antonio. I played at the Valero Texas Open course there at the TPC San Antonio. I had a speaking engagement there with the people from the United Group. Had a great time. So many thanks to them. But I'm coming back. My wife is with me, and we were. This is a nice little 7-hour drive from San Antonio home, and hey, honey, let's go by McLean Stadium, and boom, the bottom's dropping out, and we did need some gas, so I pulled off, and then as we began to drive away, I said, "Look at that! That looks ominous. That cloud, boy, that doesn't look good." And it couldn't have been more than maybe 10 miles out of there that we had to exit. And I generally don't get off the highway. I generally just power through, and then the alerts started hitting our cell phones, like take shelter, and it was like, oh. So I got off at another one of these truck stop places and sat there for about 45 minutes to an hour for it to, get to a point where at least I could see the cars in front of me. I took back off again. We go about another hour, and hell, it happened again. And we had to pull off. And so my 7-hour drive turned into about 8.5. But we got through it and, enjoyed one another's company. One of those stories that you love to tell. And I thought about you guys a lot. And I said, I can't wait to tell Smoak and the boys about this. Man, what a greeting.
Hey, we would have put you up. We got, we were right there by McLean Stadium. It's I don't know if it's as good as a truck stop, but
no, we don't have snacks.
I'm a big fan of Love's Coffee.
Yeah.
So I like to stop at Love's or at Pilot because I prefer their coffee. But we had to make a few more stops than we wanted to make. Let's put it that way. But I had a great time, and I will always drive over flying anytime. An 8-hour trip is no big deal to a Southerner. We don't mind turning on Sirius XM or I actually, if we've been coming through Waco when you guys were on, this was earlier in the day. So for us, and I knew you guys weren't working, so I couldn't tune you in while I was coming through. But it was wild. It was wild coming through there yesterday.
Emery, one of our producers, is from Oklahoma and sat by the door and watched it like an old man, which is the most Oklahoma thing about him, is that when a gully washer hits, we watch it like it's The Sopranos.
Right. The funny thing was, literally, we got home, and it was one of those like stories out of, you get home and you're like, okay, do we have anything in the house? No, I think we emptied it because the kids were all here and the grandkids were all here for Easter. So we got nothing in the house. So I dropped off Terry, went up to Brookshire's, which is about a half a mile from here. I'm getting some food, and boom, now suddenly that 65-mile-an-hour wind is hitting that parking lot, and I was marooned there for about a half an hour. So I wound up seeing, I think, picks number 30, 31, and 32 last night, as it turned out, in the draft. So I missed most of the drama early in the draft. I was planning on, getting home around 6:30. Didn't really get there until about 8:30 or 9.
All right, so there's so much to get to. Let's start with the draft. Obviously, Cam Ward, a great story, 0-star out of high school, among others. There was the constant look in on what's happening with Shedeur. Were you surprised that Shedeur was not drafted last night? Some said that could happen.
No, I really wasn't surprised. And that's only because I listened to some of these guys. I'm not a big draft Nick at all. I dodged it like the plague when I worked at ESPN. I wanted no part of it. And, I'm not big on recruiting or signing day either. So I'm one of those guys that I do keep up with it because I like, I'm in the sports business. So from distance, I'm fine with it. But I never really wanted to be an evaluator of talent. And what I always found when I did my show on the radio for, almost 15 years, you can talk to general managers, you can talk to agents. You're never going to get the straight story ever. I mean, they just lie. I mean, they openly lie to your face whenever you talk to them. I admire guys like what Kuiper did in creating a niche for himself and for ESPN, and that happened shortly after I went to work there. I was doing my draft show, and when I was working in local radio in New Orleans, I hosted a draft show for the Saints at the Monteleone Hotel back in the early 80s, back in 82. And the whole city, that was back in the days when the draft was during the week and it was a daytime event. And typical of ESPN in those days, they turned it into something big. And by the time I started working there, they had hired Kuiper, and Mel was an Encyclopedia Britannica on it. And, there are a few others that have come up through the pipeline that have followed his lead and have done really well. McShay is outstanding, I think. I like Todd, and I've known Todd for a long time. As he was starting his career, he did some work with us and Pat Kerwin at CBS on the NFL side. So I've known him for quite a while. But I tried to stay away from it as much as possible. But I do get a kick out of seeing how things get moved around. When I heard what I did about Sanders and I found out, all I needed to find out that made me believe he might be overlooked was the fact that he, number one, didn't go to the combine, and number two, didn't take part in the Senior Bowl. He could have done those things. And the NFL has a way of bonding over rejections to those who are not humble enough. And he was humbled yesterday. That was a humbling process for him. And he's, by the way, get in line. It happened to Aaron Rodgers too. It's happened before to a lot of guys, as good or better than you. So I'm not surprised by it. Will the Browns take him when things get started tonight? Likely, I guess, because of their situation. They've got 3 quarterbacks to go nowhere with. Deshaun Watson's been a proven bust with all kinds of baggage. Pickett's on his 3rd team, and he was a first-round pick, in 21? And Flacco is almost as old as us, David. So, so I think that they could arguably be the team that takes him, and that would be a sentencing for sure, because Cleveland is where a lot of quarterbacks have gone to see their careers end very soon for a long, long time. Going back to Tim Couch, and the hits just kept on coming, from that time moving forward. So we'll see. But I wasn't surprised. No, somebody's always going to be overlooked. That's a big name. Probably the retiring of his jersey at Colorado was sort of like throwing a little more fuel into the fire, so to speak, for some of those GMs. And I don't know that Dion meant for that to happen. Probably not. I don't think Dion is that way. I don't think he's wired that way. But, by the way, I've got no problem with the young man being honored in such a way. I do think the timing, however, was probably, from a public relations standpoint, very poor as far as last night is concerned.
Tim, you did several of his games over the couple years he was at Colorado,
and Cam Ward too.
Cam Ward.
He was at Wazoo after he left Incarnate Word for his first big start. I posted it today. It was against Oregon in September of 22, and they should have beaten Oregon that day. And a lot of people were like, "Who is this kid?" It was sort of his coming out party.
Yeah. Do you see, though, Shadore Sanders being obviously in the right situation, a long-term NFL player? I think that part of the thing that hurts him is that he was not playing in an NFL offense and he didn't have a running game. So you've never seen him play a game that a normal NFL quarterback would ever have to play.
True. But I'll also say this. I think being hurt and being banged up and he went through a lot. I mean, by the time I saw him in the first game I called of his, it was the end of that first season. The offensive line was just a mash unit, and he could barely have time to even set his back foot, and the guys were all over him. I mean, Dion did not have the kind of depth at in the offensive front that he had last year at all in that first year. And he got banged up a lot. He played through a lot of – I'll say this about Shedeur Sanders. there's nothing soft about that kid. He got hammered and came back up for more each time. You can take shots at him for a lot of things, but not that he's he's a tough competitor because he got hammered a lot and he always came back for more. He's demonstrative, not unlike his father. And the same is true of his brother, by the way, in their approach to the game. A lot of what's been said today by so many of the pundits, you can just tell they don't like Shedeur and they really don't like Deion, so they take it out that way. But then on the flip side of that, you see some of the other pundits that are out there, and don't get me started about these daytime embrace debaters. Are they having any trouble these days? Some of those daytime embrace debaters?
I hadn't heard.
Let's see how they do in an NFL character combine. Okay, but some of them have come in with this negativity about his posturing, about about his lackadaisical approach and his bad interviews. But by the way, if he did bad interviews, that's on him. Okay, not showing up for the combine that's on him. Those are decisions that he made and his advisors helped make for him, I gather. And I could maybe even see Deion saying, no, you don't need to do that. I could see Deion saying that. He had the same sort of mentality, obviously, when he came in as a pro. But I think he was also, when he was coming out of college, everyone knew he was a known commodity. And those were different times, too. We didn't have these back in 1986 and 87, okay? We didn't have those. But when I see people injecting, I didn't see this about Baker. Ryan Clark needs to just take a look in the mirror from time to time before he makes statements, okay? He made a comparison today on social media about Baker Mayfield and how he was not as maligned and was not as hurt by whatever happened with him off the field as was Shedeur. And in his own subtle way, again, is injecting race into the issue. And turning this into a race baiting issue is so stupid. It's so sophomoric. It needs to stop. Just needs to stop. I like Ryan. I remember him as a player, covered him as he was playing at LSU, making his way up through free agency to be a pro and had a marvelous career. And to this point, until recently, I thought he was doing a really nice job on television, albeit in that realm, that cesspool that is Embrace Debate TV. Sometimes these guys are just on too much and they've got way too much time to fill and they say stupid things. I thought what he said today was really stupid.
Tim, Jackson Dart ends up being the number 2 quarterback, and we'll see tonight how quickly a Tyler Shuck or a Shadore or whoever ends up going. But any thoughts? I mean, I remember it wasn't that long ago people were poo-pooing all over Bo Nix, and he ends up going pretty high as a strong season. What do you see in store for a Jackson Dart? Certainly a guy that a lot of people have split opinions on.
Well, another guy, by the way, I saw when he wasn't cool. We saw Jackson before Jackson was cool. Spencer and I went in to do a Cal USC game December 5th of 2021. Okay, so out of the COVID year, they've already hired Lincoln Riley. He's already announced he's bringing Caleb Williams with him. And Jackson Dart is going to start against Cal with a USC team that was depleted and probably dressed about 55 to 60 guys that night in Berkeley. Cal did win the game, by the way. With a pretty good quarterback on their side, too, I might add. But Jackson was a kid we had heard about, knew that he was highly thought of and highly recruited, but had not seen him at all. And he, a little bit like Shedeur, they didn't have much of an offensive front. He was running for his life much of that night, but he made some really pure throws. And it was very impressive to me, and I thought he acquitted himself in a way that he was going to attract a lot of attention as a transfer. And lo and behold, it was the former USC head coach, Lane Kiffin, that picked him up, that was able to pick Jackson up and bring him into Oxford. He has really improved, tremendously, taken great steps, I think, with his play at that position. his decision making, the judgment in when to run and when to not run has been absolutely fantastic. I only saw him really make one terrible pass last year, and that was in the Florida game, wound up costing them an opportunity to be in the college football playoff. I mean, it was a bad throw. He did try to fit it into a window that he should not have attempted. That was the only really bad play I saw him make through the course of last year. I was not at all surprised when the Giants traded up that Jackson Dart was the guy they were going to get. A little something in the water with the Giants when it comes to Ole Miss quarterbacks. Going all the way back to Charlie Connerly when Archie Manning was coming up wearing number 42. He played at Ole Miss and was probably the most highly thought of and well-known quarterback of his time. And that was when Archie was a kid growing up in Drew, Mississippi. And then, of course, you saw what happened with Eli and the great career that he had with the Giants with a couple of Super Bowls. So when the moment that was announced, I knew that Jackson was going to get that spot.
I want to make sure we have plenty of time for you to reminisce about Mike Patrick, but also about Lee Corso's impending retirement. But this week, the Judge Wilkin in the House settlement against the NCAA spanked all NCAA leaders again and gave them time, and yet they just don't quite get it about the slowly but surely adding in roster limits.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, they're playing with fire here. It's also a part of some sort of a negotiation. But this woman, Judge Wilkin, doesn't seem to be very much more patient if they don't get this done quickly.
A lot of times when I hear about a judgment and you tell me she's being a little impatient, my eyebrow raises. In this case, hearing she's being a little impatient makes me smile like you couldn't believe, because something has got to be done. Somebody's got to shake these people and make them aware. My God, don't you realize what you're doing to yourselves? Why would you continue to throw yourselves under the bus the way you are? By the way, where are they going for this revenue sharing? Where are these payments going to come from, you ask? They're coming from the people I work for. They're coming from the people that are invested in college football, from the rights holders, okay? The Disney Corporation, the Fox Corporation. That's where this money's coming from, okay? And the rights are already incredible. Now, what are we saying? We're saying, okay, we'll pay you more. You got to give us more. We got to have a little better inventory. So, okay, this is what we have to do. And the pendulum will continue to swing in that direction. It's also time that those leaders of the college football conferences, of the college football playoff conferences, stand up and say, okay, we cannot win as long as the NCAA is involved in our futures. The NCAA's involvement in their futures are making them pay even more now than they would have paid before. It's like not paying your taxes over time and penalties and interests. You know what I mean? I mean, that's really what it is. It's like at some point, your CPA just needs to say, look, stop whatever you're doing and do this, because the penalties and interest is going to eat you up. It's going to eat the NCAA right out of it altogether. And I absolutely believe, I don't know when, but I think it's got to happen now. The commissioners, led by Sankey and Petitti, and I think Yormark and Phillips have to get on board too, and get the rest of the commissioners of the Group of Five conference. We got to take control of this, because right now this thing is spiraling out of control. Yeah, we can meet the revenue share with the help of our television partners, but we're not going to be able to do that over this much time if we continue to allow ourselves to be policed by the National Collegiate Athletic Association. These people have been asleep at the wheel for eons, okay? We're talking decades now of mismanagement. And so, and this notion that you're going to be able to turn to Charlie Baker and he's going to be able to go and get guys like Raskin on the left and Cruz on the right to come together to make something good happen for college football, forget about that. There's no time. Can you imagine the fallout and pushback that would come even with okay, a Republican-controlled executive branch and the House and Senate, if in fact they suddenly said, okay, here's what we're going to do to put up guardrails for the portal and NIL. Can you imagine that with everything else that's going on? Okay, politically, it's just not the right time for that. College football's got to start fending for itself, and it needs to do it immediately. I mean, immediately. Because right now, they might be able to pay their debts. But until they get some guardrails up, and they need to do it quickly, and it's going to have to be from those that govern the game, it's going to have to be from the power brokers involved in college football. Don't be looking to Charlie Baker for any help. I mean, the NCAA is batting 0 in court. This is yet another example of that, David. It's an absolute example of that.
They also lost yet another eligibility case today with somebody who wanted to get another year because of something during his career, and the NCAA lost that, and he was given an extra year. Tim Brando with us, Fox Sports with us on 365 Sports. Paul?
Tim, you bring up the Charlie Baker angle of it. I saw the story where they spent $450,000 on lobbying. That's money they set on fire this year because of that. Like it's a drop in the bucket to what they spent on everything else. But also, you're not going to get anything done without that second comma, and that is not coming until a little while. Why? Do you think that the power conference leaders can get together and write up something that they can get in action pretty quickly and just say, that's it? Do they have something in the kitty to just go, all right, here you go. This is what we're going to do. You guys have gone long enough.
In the current climate, I don't think so. No, I don't think that anyone is able to do that. Or the reason why, look, Greg Sankey is pretty public with a lot of his thoughts about what's going on. Tony Petitti operates differently, different kind of leadership from him. Now, they're both in conversation and consultation, and they get along, and that's really good. I think it's glad that the Big Ten and the SEC are communicating because they do have to lead. From a financial standpoint, they are the leaders. They've got the most at stake, but they also know that the others have got to be taken care of. Otherwise, they are just dealing with themselves. And you can't just run off by yourselves and have college fans across the country buy in. Okay. They have to be, you're stronger together. Okay. It's like, it sounds trite. It almost sounds like, the headline of a speech I might be given to teams and or corporations. We're stronger together. But they know that. And right now, without the help of congressional intervention, I don't think either one, Sankey or Petitti, think right now that they can just take the bull by the horns. I believe they need to. I absolutely believe they need to. But I don't think that their lawyers are telling them that now is the right time. But pretty soon, their accountants are going to be telling them that. Okay? If the lawyers don't, the comptrollers will. Because there's only so many times you can dip in to the well, and that well is coming from television, and say we need. At this stage, if you're involved in college athletics from a business perspective, even with all the revenue that's been generated, for the good of the players, for the good of the coaches, for the good of the institutions, okay, for people in my business, it is a high risk, low reward industry right now. Okay. That's why you see projects like the UFL, where Fox is in control of a spring league. They don't have to pay rights for it, but they're putting programming out. Now, some might say, how many people are really watching? Well, more people are watching that than would be watching a replay of lacrosse, which would be the alternative if you didn't have it. Same is true with ESPN's coverage of the NHL. The NHL, you might say, how many people are really watching it? Well, you know what? For the number of viewers they get and the cost factor in buying it to have the rights for it, it's probably a really good deal for them. Football right now, as great as it is for the viewer, and it's never been better, okay? If you're involved in it from a TV business perspective, it's a lost leader at this stage. Probably the NBA, thank God for them, because those are the rights that are absolutely killing a lot of corporations right now because the viewership is so low. But college football is skirting into some really damaging areas with respect to what they expect to come in terms of the rights to carry their games for what those corporations can get in return. You know, you got to have better inventory if you're going to ask for more money. And that's where they are right now. They need more money to take care of revenue share. And we're doing everything in our power to cooperate. I really believe that. I think the people at ESPN, there's one commonality between ESPN and Fox, is that both corporations are really invested in college football and want to see it succeed. So much to the point that when they ask for help, you know, my bosses and their bosses are willing to give it at every turn. They're willing to give it. But how much more can you ask for, really? Okay. Because you've got to get some guardrails up. And whether it's for the portal or for NIL, we got to find a way to limit the number of unrestricted free agency stories that we see out there. And now that the players can be paid directly by the institutions, that's the biggest change. Fans keep wondering, well, wait a minute, that money comes from collectives, right? Now the money now will be coming from the schools themselves. And so they got to get some contracts written. They got to get some legal things taken care of. Listen, it's bigger than any of us realize, okay? But I'm just telling you from my portion of the business that I'm in, I see what's going on, and I've been around for 6 decades doing this thing. College football was made by television and cable proliferation first, okay? Right after the CFA was formed, after the NCAA lost that lawsuit to the universities of Georgia and Oklahoma, there was a huge boom. I wouldn't have made it to where I am today. We wouldn't be talking about Lee Corso in a couple of minutes if not for that deal being done in 1984. Okay, there would have been no game day. There would have been no live college football on cable television. Okay, it was still beginning one game only on ABC, courtesy of the NCAA contract. Well, we're in a similar situation now. We've got way too much out there that's on, and everybody's got to pay for it. And most of those everybody's are really, we're doing everything we can to make a profit on the product. And more you're seeing with the influx of games on conference networks, the money that's doled out for production for all these games that are televised is immense. And you're going to get a gazillion cameras and great coverage of the biggest games, but more and more we're seeing games stripped down, fewer cameras, people calling games from studios and closets. And you know, why do you think they're doing these things from a production standpoint? They're doing them to save money. Why? Because all that money's being spent just for the rights to carry the games. And again, I know fans really don't care. They don't care. This is just entertainment for them. But I'm telling you, at a certain point, the rubber meets the road. And I think that the people that are in governance of college football at the college football playoff level, particularly, they know what they're facing right now. But now they gotta figure out where to go, what buttons to push, without leaning on the NCAA. The NCAA does two things. One, they sanction bowl games that we don't need, and they run basketball tournaments really well. After that, they do nothing correct. They do nothing correctly. Okay? So get the hell away from them and do it yourself.
You mentioned Lee Corso. I want to make sure we get a chance to visit with you about him. His last game day will be at the end of August. There's always the thought it might be Florida State, Alabama, or maybe it's Ohio State, Texas. Whatever it is, his impact from he was like everybody's favorite uncle or everybody's just favorite character, football coach, but just, God bless you, just wanted to go up and hug him.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. He was a lot more than just the clown prince of college football, the way he's been portrayed by so many in the aftermath of this announcement. Yeah, I understand that things changed for that show the moment he put the Buckeye on his head in 1996 for the first time. But from the time he auditioned with me in 1987, in the late summer of 1987, along with Pepper Rogers, and he basically conned Pepper Rogers into not wanting the job even before he auditioned himself. You really don't want to come up here every week, do you? I mean, you're set. You don't want to give up those speaking engagements. They're going to want somebody up here every week. And Pepper bought it. And he was willing to do games as well as the studio. And he did with Mike Patrick a lot of Saturday games. And then he would report for us on game day from that location. He was with us, but you'll see a lot of pictures at times of Lee with me, but very rarely was Lee on the set with Bino and myself in that first year, and maybe a couple of times in the second year. But he was part of our show all the time. We sent him wherever he was going to do the game. He would come on with us. The side of the A&M game with Alabama, when speaking of weather, the Hurricane Bowl, when Hurricane Gilbert moved and Bill Curry wouldn't take his team there. I was doing sort of a Ted Koppel back and forth with the two coaches, and they're throwing darts at each other. And Corso is there at College Station playing the role of the arbiter between the two of them. They were about to go at it with each other, and that was great TV. And Lee was right there for all of it, helping me out. For those that don't remember, that game was moved to the first week in December and played after the A&M Texas game, after the Auburn-Alabama Iron Bowl game in December on a Thursday night, and Corso and I wound up calling the game in 1988. And Fowler was on the sidelines that year. Lee was he was an X's and O's guru. Bino was our clown prince. We used Bino in the same role that Corso became after 96 when he put the headgear on. But Lee watched Bino, and he saw that Bino didn't mind being the butt of the joke. And so he knew after Craig James had come in and left for CBS, and then Kirk Herbstreit came in, that he could be the guy that was having all the fun. And he could be serious, and no one was better at analyzing a game at that time than Corso. Hell, he'd been on the sidelines coaching the Renegades in the USFL in 1985. That's how the contact between ESPN and him had begun. And so it's amazing to think the transformation that he went through in the aftermath of his stroke. I wasn't there for that. I heard a lot about it from people who were. And I think that the version of Lee that I saw was an incredibly talented and gifted guy that was driven to be the biggest thing in college football. He had a vision that College Game Day was going to be an iconic show. I did not share that feeling at all. I don't think Fowler did when he took over from Bob Carpenter. I think most of the people there that were part of that show felt like Steve Bornstein, who was our boss, had a vision. I just wanted to use this to get the hell out to go call games somewhere. But Lee thought this is going to be something big. He told me right before our first show, after a meeting in Steve Bornstein, our president's office at the time, he looked over at me and said, "Timmy, college football doesn't have a Dickie V. I'm going to be college football's Dickie V." And at the time, I thought to myself, "My, really? What?" And then that's exactly what he became. He became, ESPN in those days, we only had 25 million homes. All right. We weren't a big network. We were better than local television, right? We had rights to call games, but we had 25 million homes. We were like a AAA team in a major league franchise. We were trying to make the big leagues, ABC, CBS, and NBC. ESPN was a great place to grow, and we all did. But it was Lee that had a vision that not only would he grow, but the company would grow with him, and this show would grow with him. Chris Berman was the first star of the studio. Vitale was the first star of games because of college basketball's role in the growth of ESPN. But Lee Corso was and remains the star of college football and at ESPN, and really a star for all of college football on television, period. No one got the reaction from the fans quite like Lee Corso did. And his willingness to fight through the physical ailments that came from that stroke, and to be as vulnerable he was on that set, knowing full well that people here on these babies were going to be taking shots at him. He didn't care. He just plowed right through it. And even when he was not at his best and he lost his train of thought, you still clamored to see what he was going to do at the end of that show. And he always brought it at the very end. I give Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler a lot of credit for humanizing that moment and really sort of humanizing themselves through that, because you could see in their hearts and in their heads and on their faces how much they wanted to help Lee. And I thought that was one of the things that made the show magical in its last few years. Think about this, David. How would you like to wake up in the morning knowing that the greatest years of your professional life would be in your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s? Because that's exactly what they were for Lee Corso. He was building to that crescendo in 96 at a time in 1987 when he was telling me, I'm going to be the Dick Vitale of college football. I wasn't buying it. I don't believe many other people were either, but he was right. And game day grew with and through him, and it became, I think, the most popular show of its kind. In the very beginning, we were just the very first college football pregame show ever, anywhere. There had never been a college football pregame show done nationally. The networks could never clear the time because of cartoons on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
But cable television could do it. And that was what Steve Bornstein had in mind. And there would have been no game day without Beano Cook. He hired Beano specifically for that show. And when he hired me, I didn't know he was hiring me for that, but he did. And they weren't happy with me when I left. But that's okay. I did what I had to do for myself. And it all worked out in the end. But Chris Fowler took it to another level as a host when he relieved Bob Carpenter, who was really more of a baseball guy anyway. But through those guys, Chris's work ethic, the hiring of Herbie after Craig left to go to CBS, those were genuine moves. But it was Corso's show. The reason those eyes were always going to be there were because people didn't know what he was going to say, and a lot of times he didn't know either. And that's why you watch. That's why you watch television. The spontaneity.
Hey,
okay, that's why you watch.
He dropped an F-bomb one day. It was the greatest thing I ever saw in my life. But
I did want to talk a little bit about Mike Patrick too.
Too. That's what I was going to ask you about. Mike
Yeah.
Patrick, especially when I was young and growing up, being the voice of college football on Thursday nights and Sunday nights. Tim, I can tell you as a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, when you have bedtimes and all this, and you have to negotiate as a sports fan with your mom of like how much game I can watch.
Yeah. How long do I get to stay up, Mom?
Yeah. Half the time it was Mike Patrick. Yeah. And I think no one has ever done his 3 minutes of setting the scene before he has to pitch it off to the color guys better than Mike Patrick. And I don't know if anybody ever will.
I thought, and I asked him this one time, because as a studio guy, I always like to shake it up. The part of the studio that I would bring to a live event was trying to think about a different way of saying a warm welcome, a different way to say, here we are, and this is what's unique about the big house. Okay, this is what's unique about the old horseshoe. This is what's unique about Lane Stadium. Okay, or at South Carolina when they're playing 2001 Sprock Zarathustra. That whole bit when they're opening a game. And Mike said, Tim, just be who you are. I say it's great to have you with us because it is great to have you with us. And I look into that camera like I'm welcoming myself as an intrusion into their home. And I learned a lot from Mike because I was in his midst. That first year in 1986, when I was part of the CFA primetime team, that was our number one show on ESPN at the time. And again, when I got the opportunity, I was told in the summer that I was going to get a call and I needed to take the call, and it was going to be for a sideline gig. And I needed to say yes, even though I wanted to call games. It was by one of the coordinating producers, Terry Linger. And Terry said, Tim, you're going to want this job because it's going to propel you. A lot of big things are going to be happening. You need to be on this show. I had no idea that game day would be coming up next. I had no idea that this was my audition to move up to Connecticut and be full-time. I was still freelancing in Baton Rouge. Well, Mike Patrick was hired to be the play-by-play guy. And I had met Mike when I was doing college basketball in 85. He would be doing the game for Raycom and Jefferson Pilot. And ESPN would buy the video rights of the ACC, and they would send in their own announcers to do the games. So Vitale and I would go in to do the games, and Mike might be working with Dan Bonner or Jeff Mullins or whoever was doing the ACC games. And Mike could not have been more welcoming and kind to me. I was, 28 years old, trying to make my way. Had no idea that when the call came for this big gig in '86, still wasn't full-time, but it was going to lead to a full-time job, that the guy that would be in the booth would be Mike, and that he and I would be together for that entire season. I learned so much from him, his humility and his ability to win over the people that he was working with, producers, directors, cable pullers, cameramen, getting to know them by the first name. Mike was from Clarksburg, West Virginia. And just like I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, he never lost sight of his roots, his, hey, how you doing mentality, and looking into that camera and saying, it's great to have you with us. You believed him. Am I right? When he said that, you believed him. It's great to have you with us. Just like, Nance might say, hello, friends. His great to have you with us was that moniker of his. And the way he orchestrated a booth, his relationship with his spotter, his statistician to go along with his analyst, the whole team thing. It's not about me. It's about we. It's always us. It's ours. It's not mine. It's us. It's ours. I learned a lot of that from Mike in that first year. And the following season, he went off to do the NFL because they got the NFL contract. And for half the year, he was doing that. For the other half, he did college, did some games with Corso, as I mentioned, during that period when we were doing game day at the same time. This was all before Ron Franklin came along. And he actually worked with Godfrey before Ron did. So I got to know him extremely well. We did 7 College World Series together. I did the afternoon games. He did the night games. And he came to me once and he said, Tim, these kids aren't on. These kids are not on television the way the football and the basketball teams are. So we've got to introduce them to America at the College World Series. And we have to do so in a way that makes it sound like we've been following them all year too. And we haven't. I said, that's right. So when we sat down with Augie Garrido or with Skip Bertman or you name the great Cliff Gustafson, any of the coaches from the primary teams that were on, Jim Brock of Arizona State, we would go player by player through their battery, through the lineups 1 through 9, and then the other guys that could be coming in, left-hand hitters, right-hand hitters, and we'd have these big 5x7 index cards just filled with information. I did the afternoon games, he did the night games, but when a team would lose a game, drop into the losers bracket, and have to play an elimination game, I might get a team that Mike had, and Mike said, Tim, when we meet with these coaches, let's don't ask the same questions. You take the cards from the games I prepared for, I'll give them to you, then you give me the cards that you prepared for, and when we have teams that were in our brackets, when we go into those meetings, we already have that information. We can ask better questions, and we can add to the information in our homework. He was all about team. He wanted to share his information with me and for me to share mine with him to make it a team thing. There's no other broadcaster that I've ever been around that ever offered to do that. And you know what? It did make the product a lot better because you're there for almost 2 weeks doing the College World Series. And when you meet with the coaches, you got to have something fresh to discuss, not just what happened in the last game, but give me more on this guy. Give me more on this relief pitcher. He was all about preparation. He was all about relatability and connectivity. I remember that about him probably more than rest his soul. He's one of the all-time greats, and not enough can be said about him. He deserves to be mentioned in the same breath with the Al Michaelses and the Summeros, guys that he did the NFL for 18 years on Sunday nights. I frankly thought that it was wrong when they got away from him when Monday Night Football moved over to ABC and Michaels wasn't going to do it. He did not want to do Monday nights, and that's where the whole NBC thing happened. I thought Mike should have moved right from Sunday into Monday, but they decided to go in a different direction, and they did. But Mike had an incredible run, and I don't think his name gets mentioned nearly enough among the all-time greats in play-by-play.
Tim, thank you. Appreciate it. Glad you made it back to Shreveport safely, and appreciate it. It's been too long since we had you on. There's plenty more to get to. Thanks for your time, and have a great weekend, man.
You got it, David. All
Thank
the best.
you.
Stay low.
Stay low. Hit them in the fairway. Hit the greens. Fairways and greens. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, with us on many things, including Lee Corso and Mike Patrick. We're now joined by Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Tyler Booker, first-round pick, has met with the media. Now they got to get ready for rounds 2, 3, and then the weekend 2, whatever happens. Mickey, thank you very much. Tyler Booker is thrilled to be picked as anybody. It wasn't fake. Sometimes you go a little bit over. He's excited. The Cowboys seem to be excited in the end. Was he the only choice left after McMillan came off the board?
Well, it was. I think it came down to two other things. One was trading back with Houston. Houston was a long ways away, so they were going to need to get a lot, and Houston wasn't offering enough for the Cowboys to drop back to 15. And then the other consideration was the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, Nolan. They considered that. But when it came down to it, David, they had gone through, as they always do, several scenarios with mock drafts, and one of them was very close to what took place in the first 11 picks of this draft. And they had a consensus that they were taking Tyler Booker at number 12 if that played out. And so they had already played this out in their mind, and they took him. And by the way, I think the press conference started with him about 4:15. I walked out, and it was still going. And one of the notes I wrote down here is, this guy for real. I can't believe the maturity, how he handled the press conference, answered questions. It was almost spellbinding. I was sitting next to his relatives, and I was waiting until it was over, and it wasn't quite over because I wanted to ask the lady next to me, is this guy for real? Because it was, I'd never heard anybody handle a group like that before in any of these opening remarks. And when they asked Jerry to kind of compare it to anything, Jerry Jones compared it to how Michael Irvin would handle a group. And that's saying a lot. And you've been around Michael Irvin.
Mickey, when we were talking about this over the time, though, like if I brought up guard, you're like, tackle who can play guard. Do you think that that's what he is? I mean, he's a road grader of a human being.
I asked that question, and the answer was he's a guard. Okay, so yeah. My scenario didn't play out, and I just got done writing a column for DallasCowboys.com, and I go, silly me. I fell for all the kind of sexy picks with the running backs, the wide receivers, the corners, the defensive end. But had I read the tea leaves, they were right in front of me. And I had written a column about this, on how Brian Schottenheimer wanted to construct his program. And it was being about being physical, being about needing to be able to run the football, needing to be able to establish a physical presence. He was telling me that he was in favor of drafting an offensive lineman, and I guess I wasn't listening well enough because it became obvious. Think about this. If you look into his offensive coordinator background, he always had a good physical running attack wherever team he was, and it didn't matter who the running back was. When he hired his offensive coordinator, who'd he hire? He hired an offensive line coach. And when he hired his offensive line coach, it was a college deep offensive coordinator who was an offensive line coach. And they kept the assistant offensive line coach. So to him, the priority was, if you're going to win football games in this league, you better establish your offensive line. And you guys, this was a facsimile to what Jason Garrett did in 2011, drafting 3 first-round offensive linemen in his first 4 picks. It's the exact same thing that has happened now in these last 4 years.
Mickey, I mentioned this on Twitter last night. And everybody said this. They're in a phase now. It's offensive lineman named Tyler phase. But this is a young offensive line. I mean, really young. Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, and now Tyler Booker, all under the age of 24.
And Cooper Beebe.
Cooper Beebe is. Yeah, and Cooper Beebe. The old one is Terrence Steele, and he's like 27 or 28, right? So they've got some youth here, plus the young guys they have. As much as fans might be bummed that they didn't get a wide receiver or running back, this could be a 10-year pick for them, and that's why I think it's good, even though maybe not as exciting as everybody was hoping for.
Well, and if you look at how the draft panned out, and I was just going to scan this because the thought just hit me. So I think after they picked, and I'm scanning it real quick, only 2 more wide receivers were picked and only 1 more running back. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Martin Hampton, yeah.
Yeah. So the rest of all these guys are still available in the second round. And talking to Stephen Jones after the draft, he felt like they had at least 12 guys for the start of this second round that they would be interested in selecting with the 44th pick in the draft. So there's still a bunch of players available, some really creditable players at whatever position the Cowboys need. You know, when we talked about needs, and it's like we came up with what you just said, running back, wide receiver, cornerback, all that stuff. Well, what about the need to replace Zach Martin? You can't replace Zach Martin with just anybody. And this should have dawned on me. I'm kind of stubborn about my feelings of taking a guard in the first round. But if you're going to, that's a big hole. It's not just replacing a guy, it's replacing a Hall of Famer. And if you're going to replace him, you better make an effort to get somebody really good. And they think they hit with this guy. And all you got to do is listen to him. I can't say I've studied him play. I've seen highlights, and highlights are always great. See him play a whole game, and I probably have and didn't realize it. But just from a character standpoint, and Brian Schottenheimer has made a big point of character being important. Well, this kid's got character, let me tell you.
I know you've got the rest of tonight and then the weekend and much more. So what do they need to come out of tonight with, Mick?
I think at some point you got to come out with a wide receiver, a running back, or a cornerback. I think between those 3 spots, I think that's something you need to do. My understanding, the defensive tackle position is pretty thin for a bunch of big guys, by the way. So those positions, there should be some guys there still available that they could sink their teeth into, and they don't have to force it. And if they see somebody and it's getting close and you're getting antsy, you got all those 6th and 7th round picks that you can move up a couple places to make sure you get the guy you want. You could more target this than to sit there and let things fall as they may.
Paul, one of the things I want to bring up, and then I know we got another guest in the top 5 o'clock hour. When they moved the draft out of New York to Chicago to all these other places, that scene in such a small town but a football heaven was amazing with 205,000 people right outside Lambeau Field, wasn't it?
It gave me chills. And as you know, I've told you the story growing up in Chicago, but I grew up a Packers fan, and I just cherished and worshiped every memory during those 60s and early 70s of the Packers. And to see that taking place in that little town, in that community, it gave you goosebumps. It was really a cool scene. I could remember, David, it might have been high school days or whatever. I had a best friend. His parents had a cabin in Wisconsin, north of Green Bay. So I think we were probably closer to Canada than we were to Illinois. And we would drive up there, and we had to go through downtown Green Bay on this road to get to where we were going. And his dad would never stop because they had a little Hall of Fame there. Well, one year my buddy and I were old enough to drive up there on their own. And when we stopped in Green Bay, we went to their little Hall of Fame, and it was just a little building. It looked like a drugstore, right? And they had a film room, and we started watching film after film, highlight. Finally, the guy came out of the film room and he goes, "Okay, you guys, what do you want to watch next?"
Wow.
we told him what game we wanted to watch, and he put it on. It's a wonderful town, a wonderful community. I couldn't be happier for those people and for the franchise.
Mickey, tonight, rounds 2 and 3, the Cowboys have, I would say, 3 needs, I would think, that maybe supersede anything else. And you always want to go best player available, but some combination of 2 of the 3 of wide receiver, cornerback, and running back in these 3 rounds. And I would say now that they're past kind of a couple of the running backs that are plus, that they might even let running back go to the 5th if cornerback and wide receiver are better, wouldn't they?
Well, maybe, but I still think, they're big on the 2 guys from Ohio State. I like Judkins. I just think his combination of power and speed, elusiveness is pretty special. Wide receiver, it's not going to happen. I'm not just saying this. I'm trying to say it objectively. Luther Burden, I can't believe he fell out of the first round. This guy is dangerous with the ball in his hand. He's like the up-and-coming Deebo Samuel. He's still out there. And the other guy I got an eye on is the cornerback from East Carolina, Savon Revel.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a torn ACL, and he's got to probably start training camp on PUP. But had he not hurt himself, he was going to be a first-round draft choice, and I guarantee you one of the first corners off the board. So keep an eye on him, because guess who did his surgery? Dr. Dan Cooper, the Cowboys orthopedic surgeon. So they'll know everything they need to know about his surgery, what was repaired, and how he's doing so far. So there's a couple guys there that stick out. But I don't know if they'll just sit tight at 12 or try to make a move to go get a guy that they really have their eye on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the draft and the weekend tonight, tomorrow, and then the undrafted players that are picked up after everything wraps up on Saturday and Sunday. When we come back, Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com, on the draft and much more. A couple of notes. By the way, real quick, because it's an update. Jaden Rashada. We talked about him, right? He is committed to go play at Sacramento State. So that's his choice, and he lands at Sacramento State. When we come back, Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com. We appreciate your time. 365 Sports. Jeeps, Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Not just Jeeps, they've got the Jeep, the 2023 Wrangler, Rubicon 392. Power, soft top, under 30,000 miles available, fully loaded for $65,000 right now on the lot at Allen Samuels in Waco. If you know, you know. The Jeep's got the power, style, off-road capabilities you could want and you also need. It's one that will turn heads and take you anywhere you want to go. But don't wait. These deals don't last long, as they hit the last weekend in April before early May starts at this time next week, and a little bit before that on Thursday. If you know, you know. All kinds of pre-owned options. That's what I bought my car, pre-owned car, at Allen Samuels. They have Volkswagen, Lexus, Toyota, and more. Head over, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and find your next ride today.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com, joins us. 365 Sports with Paul Catalina, David Smoak, and Craig Smoak. Scott, thank you very much. Rounds 2 and 3 tonight. What was your take after what occurred yesterday? There was a lot of drama, of course, with Shedeur, but what was the main story other than that, in your opinion?
I think in some ways everybody kind of went safe yesterday. I think people wanted the best player that fit their team, and it's not sexy to write about, but it's important. And it's not sexy to talk about, but it's the most important thing that a team can do. And that is, you take, in your neck of the woods, the Dallas Cowboys getting Tyler Booker, that he is a road grader. He's a Zamboni on the football field. That's something that Dallas needed with Zach Martin retiring, 5.5 years away from being in Canton, Ohio. So I think when you look at some of the other picks, it was kind of the same boat. And, maybe the thing that was most interesting to me is that I think getting for the Giants to get back into the first round to get Jackson Dart shows that maybe there isn't a lot of faith in what Shadore Sanders can do. He's athletically, he's terrific. He's showed a lot of abilities at Colorado, but then there's been a lot of conceit, and I think that's something that maybe has scared away some teams or made them a little bit cautious here. And I would expect him to go, here in the second round because he is such an incredible talent. But I think with his dad saying that he shouldn't go lower than 4, and we know kind of how everything is shaped up there, it just doesn't surprise me that teams are kind of backing away if they're not really sure about him.
You really like Derek Harmon, obviously, and you like him over Walter Nolan. I saw that the way that you guys graded out. What was it about Walter Nolan to the Cardinals that kind of shocked you? Maybe him getting picked before for Derek Harmon.
Yeah, I think Derek Harmon, both in his days at Michigan State and then later at Oregon, he just kind of fits everything you want in an interior defensive lineman, and that's as a zero tech, whether he's in the A gap or he's over a guard. I think he's got pretty much everything you want. I mean, with Walter Nolan, I think he's really good too, and we're splitting hairs a little bit on this, but in some ways, I think the Ole Miss defensive line was so good, you start to wonder who was actually responsible for that. And I think there's a couple of players tonight that'll probably be taken as well that kind of that you start to wonder a little bit, was it Walter Nolan? Was it Princely? Was it somebody else? And I think that's going to be, a question that they're going to have to answer. But overall, I think if you're looking to be more of a 4-down lineman up front, then maybe what you want is somebody like Walter Nolan. But if you're looking to be more versatile and maybe having somebody control the line of scrimmage in a 2-gap way, and Derek Harmon, his burst and his physicality and his strength and his power are all there. And so maybe that's why I thought Derek Harmon would have been my choice at that position.
Scott, a lot of people made the connection that a year ago Ashton Jeanty was sitting there in Las Vegas by himself at a casino doing media day, basically, and now here he is, and he's the face of Las Vegas the last 24 hours, going to the Raiders. Your thoughts on Pete Carroll and company plucking him away and how he fits into the big picture there?
Yeah, just imagine that a couple of years ago we were wondering if this position was dead. I mean, people were just saying no way should a running back ever go in the first round. And we had Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. I know I panned the Gibbs one, not because of his talent, but just that he was taken at 12 overall. But we're seeing the importance now of running backs, because you look primarily at the teams playing a too high safety. Well, you can run on it. And if you have a running back, whether it's Saquon Barkley or Ashton Jeanty, who I think is probably the best running back since Saquon Barkley in college football, that you can attack that with your numbers advantage, and then you have an elite talent to go along with it. It's an advantage that you can't replicate in the passing game, because it's physical and it's dominant and you're imposing your will. And I think that's what we're seeing. We saw last night with 2 running backs going high. I think Omarion Hampton is fantastic as well. In most years, he would have been the number 1 running back. And I think tonight you're going to see several running backs. Caleb Johnson from Iowa, the duo from Ohio State. I think, Cam Skattebo, maybe a 3rd rounder, but we saw what he was able to do at Arizona State, and an RJ Harvey from UCF. I mean, the list goes on and on for all the good running backs here. And I think you're seeing kind of the way the game kind of moves and back and forth, and it's always that chess match. And you're going to see at some point defenses saying we just can't get run on the way we are, and then they're going to go back to 8 in the box, and which is going to loosen up the secondary and make tight ends more prevalent in the game, big picture.
Scott, the draft, the first round, if you have a first round pick, you surely can't screw it up. But sometimes some of them are not, they're thuds. They don't work out. It's almost like National Signing Day when you hear every coach say they got everybody they wanted. They got a great class. They don't always really are telling the truth. But in the first round, did anyone step in it, in your opinion? Was there anything in particular where you thought you saw a pick and you went like, man, that doesn't seem to make any sense?
The one that and I gave it a lower grade, and I really cringed when I did it, was Emeka Egbuka going to Tampa at 19 overall. And it certainly is not reflective at all of his talent. He is a fantastic player. He's a really good blocker. He does so many different things. He did so many different things at Ohio State, and he's going to do really well in Tampa. The one thing I just kind of wondered with Tampa was, you have some holes on your defense, especially in your secondary. And it might be the next pick, with Barron going to Denver. And I kind of thought, if you 2 teams would have flipped your selections, then I would have felt so much better about both of them. Because I think, these 2 guys are elite talents who are going to start, play really, really well. But I thought Denver could use a little bit more on offense. They have some really good defensive backs. And then likewise, I thought Tampa could use some more on defense. And they have, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans is still an elite talent. And I just thought that they could have used a little bit more. But overall, there have been a few times when I've really kind of been surprised, but there weren't that many reaches. I think there were maybe just a couple. And even then, when you got Philadelphia getting Jahad Campbell late in the draft and nobody's going up to get Shedeur at 30 or something like that, it just shows everybody took a little bit more of a risk-averse route. So it's kind of hard to pan them for that.
Scott, what do you think about the Jaguars getting aggressive, going to get Travis Hunter, and what that says about the new era of Liam Cohen and Gladstone, the GM who a lot of people didn't really know about, but has been a huge part of what the Rams have been doing the last few years. that's something maybe the Jaguars haven't done in the past very well.
No, I mean, the last time you've seen the Jaguars brass be a little bit excited was probably when they got Trevor Lawrence. And there was a reason why they got Trevor Lawrence. They were the worst team in the NFL. And I think he would have been a really, he has been a good player, not a great player there, and maybe a little bit of a disappointment because he's had a couple of really big moments, but then the team around him has not been very exciting as well. And you're talking about one of the strangest markets to me in the NFL. Jacksonville, it's a huge college football town. It always has been. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't moved into that NFL area as much as it probably should have. And I think that's what they need to do. They need to gin up some interest. And if you're gonna make a splash, you just made it for probably one of the most versatile players we've ever seen in the history of college football, in Travis Hunter, who's able to play on both sides, obviously at an elite level, something we've really never seen in college football before. And now he's going to try to do it in the NFL. And I think for Jacksonville to bring in a player of that kind of excitement and interest, it provides them with an opportunity to kind of reconnect with their fan base and sell tickets, show off Trevor Lawrence a little bit, and then maybe get on TV a few more times, national TV anyway, on a Monday night game or two.
Scott, in the next 10 years, is there a draft where the first round's entirely made up of SEC and Big Ten players?
Yeah, I think it might happen. We're looking yesterday there were 26 out of the 32 were in those two leagues. And you look at the number of Texas players and Oregon players who are in it. And a year ago, they would have been considered Big 12 and Pac-12 players. So I think it's really possible. And then you throw on the transfer portal, which closes today for college football, and players that normally would have been at a Toledo or maybe a different, maybe not even an FCS team like North Dakota State, but somewhere else, they're going to say, well, you know what, I'm going to go up and get my $1 million and go play at, Texas Tech, well, I guess, or Texas and Texas A&M or Illinois or Iowa or some place like that, and get into the NFL that way. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if it gets to the high 20s, 30s, possibly all 32 picks are from those two conferences.
All right, you do a great job of covering the area of the whole country, but also Iowa State, Jalen Noel and also Jaden Higgins. Do you think both go tonight, the wide receivers with Iowa State?
Yeah, I do. I think they both do. Jalen Noel has been tremendous. He really made a lot of key clutch plays for the Cyclones all year long. And Higgins is just bigger, and he also played really well. But I think what happened was when Jalen Noel went to the combine and his numbers, his workout was just off the charts. I think he had a 41 vertical and ran a sub 4.40. And so people really took a second look, and then they saw some of the plays he made to win games. He single-handedly was involved in beating Iowa, but in a 1-point game where they won by a 54-yard field goal in the game's final play. And then you look at Jaden Higgins and how big he is. Yes, I think Iowa State could have 3 even in the second round with Darian Porter, who is pretty raw at corner. He played wide receiver for 3 years and flipped over, but he had the second fastest 40 time, and he's 6'2" and long-armed, and I think he's got a chance to be one of those guys that some defensive back coach is going to say, I really need somebody like that, because if I work with him, that we've got something special, rather than, hey, we've already seen what his best is, and we don't think we can get more out of him.
If I told you a year ago that Luther Burton would fall in the first round, would that have shocked you?
It would have surprised me, no doubt about it. He's to me one of those players that there's about 5 players. Eamon Moore from South Carolina is one. I mean, I've been blown away that he wasn't in there. Will Johnson, has a little bit of a knee issue at Michigan. Otherwise, he would have been a high first rounder, in my opinion. He was hurt last year, but just an elite covered corner. And then I also think Luther Burden, is a guy that probably a top 10, top 12 pick. You thought going into this year, he's a lot like Ibuka. I think he's going to make somebody very, very happy in the top of round 2, somewhere in the first 5 to 6 picks. So, but there is another, there are quite a few other pretty good players that are around. I think this draft was interesting and unique to me because there's about 3 to 4 or 5 elite talents, and then there was like a bunch of guys that you wouldn't be surprised if Donovan Jackson went 24 to Minnesota, 15 to Atlanta, or 48. And I think that's what you got. And so you've got a lot of solid players coming up probably throughout the second round.
Where does Jalen Milroe fit in tonight?
What a great question, because I'm trying to figure out what's his best landing spot. And he is immensely talented. And he was like, I remember at the end of September, especially that game against Georgia, I thought, okay, he might be my Heisman #1, the way he played there and the way he played against Wisconsin the week before. And then he just kind of, just fell off the face of the earth and didn't play very well the rest of the year. Is he somebody that Cleveland might want? Because it doesn't sound like Cleveland wants Shadore Sanders, and is that a place for him? Well, New Orleans take a look at him. I think he's the type of guy that you would want to get him, maybe in Vegas or something, where you've got a veteran and you can kind of work with him there and try to straighten out the wrinkles, because the talent is so immense. So if I were advising him, or if I had a chance to pick him in a certain spot, I think if he went with, say, Geno Smith to Vegas, whether it's the second round or even the third round, I think that would be a really good spot, because maybe in 2 years you might have him the way you had, like, say, Jalen Hurts when he was kind of up and down before he ended up in the second round.
Thank you, man. Appreciate the insight and the knowledge. Scott Dockerman, theathletic.com. We've had him on many times, college football, but also a combination of that, because college football players are the ones being drafted into the NFL. Paul's top 5 a little bit later in this hour. We'll break here, and then we're going to come back and try to play a game.
Well, this is taking the place of the top 5.
Oh, so it's the top 32.
This is the top.
So when we come back, Paul, Craig, how many did you say Paul would get correct among his 32 when he did the mock draft? What was the number you said initially?
I said 4.
Okay. I think I said 7. Now, this is not easy. And we're about to prove how either easy it is or maybe not, as we will go through picks 1 through 32. And how did Paul do? That's next. This is 365 Sports. Ideal. MRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco. Had somebody ask me about, they had back surgery, I think about 15 years ago. And they used to work out all the time. They used to run quite a bit. They can't run as much, but they do run now. And like 40 miles a week. This guy named Barry. I was like, golly, that's quite a bit. But that's what he did. And then he couldn't do that quite as much. And I can kind of relate to that. I don't run hardly ever now. I do mainly walk and jog, if that. But he was asking me about ideal MRI. He needed to get a look at his back. He said he feels good, but they want another look to see if there's anything that's creeped in, because he's had a couple of aches and pains. And I told him, Ideal MRI is where I've got my MRIs for my shoulder, for my abdomen, for my lower back, and for also around my neck area. And every single time, it has been $497 or less. And, of course, when I say less for me, because I have Medicare now, and so the cost is at $0. But it's been very, very smooth. I get there. I don't wait very long and get inside. You get ready for the MRI machine. The techs and specialists are fantastic. I have never been spooked, and I am claustrophobic when I've gotten inside inside their state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. $497 or less. The average around the country is well over $1,000. So Barry's going to do them. The doctor knows them, and so that is going to be good to see what's going on with his back. At IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, south of Waco and I-35.
Escape into fitness with the Schwinn IC4 bike, providing a premium, heart-pumping indoor cycling experience that combines digital connectivity with superior Schwinn quality. The IC4's smooth, quiet ride features magnetic resistance with 100 micro-adjustable resistance levels, an intuitive resistance knob, a beautiful backlit LCD display, adjustable race-style seat, dual-link pedals with toe cages, and a pair of 3-pound dumbbells with easy-reach cradles. Place your phone or tablet on the media rack and keep them charged with the IC4's convenient USB charging station, extra-large dipped handlebars for premium grip, and dual water bottle holders for staying hydrated. The Schwinn IC4 comes with a slim, comfortable, Bluetooth-enabled heart rate armband that continuously monitors heart rate to help you stay within your target zone. But the best part about the IC4 is premium digital connectivity. Digitally immerse yourself in a world of virtual races, exotic locales, and stunning trails from around the globe. With connectivity to cycling and coaching apps like Peloton, Explore the World, and Zwift, with the Schwinn IC4 bike, you can ride with Peloton at a fraction of the price. Don't limit yourself to one digital experience. Pedal through dozens of scenic destinations, controlling your pace by speeding up or slowing down. Fitness was never meant to be put in a box, and neither were you. Escape the everyday with the Schwinn IC4 bike, your ticket to a life well lived.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome back. You may notice that I'm not over there now. We're going to do something a little bit different. We used to do the top fives where Smokey and Craig would participate, and then they hated it, so I did it over there. But this one, I think, would be fun because I did ask you guys yesterday how many picks you would think I got right. Smokey said 7. I said 8. I thought I would get 8, 25%. Emery said 5. Garrett said 17.
Yeah, I screwed that all up.
He said 17.
It was
What a
stupid.
suck up.
And here's the deal. 17 went out the window in the second pick. Like, as soon as that trade happened, it was going to wreck everything. Craig said 4. So, I don't know if you want to reveal that yet of who got it right.
No.
But
how many people probably snickered and said, like, oh, what a hater. He said 4. What a hater.
Yeah.
Well, all it takes is
get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready to see how much of a hater I am.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think I should get partial credit for one, but I'll leave that up to the committee.
That's up to
I'll
the
leave
jury.
That up, I'll leave that up
By
to
the
you guys.
way, I didn't hate the top 10. It just didn't flow right. Like, it didn't
no.
flow when
I
we
was
were
teasing.
doing it, the back and forth. It flows way better with you doing it.
Oh.
It wasn't like a hate thing.
Absolutely. I'm just teasing.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you don't think that.
No. But anyhow, let's go ahead and dive into this. So, right off the bat.
Yes.
You see. You can see how
There are
I did.
4 green lines.
There are
four
green
highlighted
lines,
picks.
4 green lines and highlighted picks. So I got 4 right for sure, and there's one we'll talk about with partial credit. So, number 1, nailed it. I mean, who else got this right? Cameron Ward.
This was the hardest one to pick because you never know what could happen.
Cam Ward got that one right.
All right. Keep that up, Garrett. Keep it up. But this is what we're going to do, Paul. So, why don't you get credit for number 2?
Well, because it wasn't right and it wasn't the right team.
You're right.
Yeah.
So he picked Abdul Carter, Cleveland. Garrett? I love that sound. I mean, I can't wait to hear that. We're going to get tired of it, aren't we, Paul?
You're going to get tired of it. That pick was Travis Hunter to Jacksonville.
Okay.
So, all right. So pick number 3, I had Shadore Sanders.
Dear God.
This one I am off by at least 30. At least 30. And then I picked Travis Hunter at 4 to the Patriots. Yeah. That one was so angry.
Where's the red? No. We can't go on. I need the red X. I got to have it. Please. It just looks good.
There we go.
Reminds me of some of those daytime shows.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I'm on
Family Feud.
Pressure Luck or Family Feud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this one, I think I should get partial credit for because I nailed the number of pick and the guy, just not the team. So I don't think I should get a buzzer for this one.
I think you should. Garrett?
I'll let him slide.
Oh,
I think you get partial credit for that.
It's kind of like Houston with Matthew Golden. Partial credit. Yeah.
I think you get partial credit. I mean, you got 2/3 of it right. The spot, the player, you just got the team wrong. And I mean, that's why like trades just, I mean, there's never going to be a perfect mock draft unless there's just there's never a trade because it's impossible to predict those things for the most part. So yeah, I'd say you get partial credit for that one.
Then here's I thought when this happening, okay, well, we got through the first wave of that. I got Mason Graham right. So last night I started feeling good about myself. Then I get 2 just ding, ding right off. Boom. Ashton Genty to the Raiders, which broke my heart. And 2, then Armand Membu to the Jets. Bam. Nailed it.
You're doing pretty good. You're 3.5 and 3.5.
There's a microphone.
I know. I'm just. You're 3.5 and 3.5 through 7 picks.
Yeah.
So good. I think Genty and the story about him being at the casino for media day. I mean, to have that all come full circle, that's pretty cool. I mean, we were out there, and the day after that night, I think it was last year.
After,
yeah. So that's pretty cool that he went from a handful of people or whatever it was, and him sitting by himself to, I mean, now they'll have a big draft party. I'm sure he's already being toured around all the casinos, and I guess to stay out west for them, for the most part. So I thought that was awesome for him and kind of a cool full circle moment.
The old barn cat, go K-State, said wrong is wrong.
Hey, yeah, if you're, I can understand that sentiment. I think in the eye of the beholder. So you will not let him slide. Others will. So we're at 4 or 4.5. We're not getting any better than that. That's the point, though.
So this is, I have one more coming, but
this one here is bad.
This one here is bad. Will Johnson, I've missed by at least 24 picks.
There you go. Thank you. There, and the red butter. Yep.
All right.
He's got a knee issue.
Every time for all the number of picks he's off, Garrett. So do it 24 times.
Now, the thing about Will Johnson, which I love watching him play, obviously part of that stingy defense at Michigan, especially 2 years ago, but that he has some issues they're concerned about knee structure. And so that's why he fell out of the entire first round.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, I did get the position right on this one, but that doesn't matter. Will Campbell was already gone. I missed him by now -5 picks. So that was bad. The Patriots took him at 4. It wasn't good. Okay. Then I thought, you know what? Ashton Genty's gone. The Bears aren't going to reach for Amari and Hampton at this spot. I thought Cole Kmet was kind of the tight end. I forgot Ben Johnson likes to run everything out of 12 personnel if he can a lot of the time. And they took Colston Loveland, who I had going a full 12 picks after this. I took Jalen Walker here, 2 picks early. So, yep. Okay. Then I had they wound up taking Colston Loveland, and the Saints took I didn't even say who they picked. The Panthers took Tedero McMillan, broke my heart again. The Saints took Kelvin Banks, and the Bears took Colston Loveland. Then I said, you know what? The San Francisco 49ers, they need help on the defensive line, and they're good at coaching those guys up. So they may take a guy with a little less production as Shamar Stewart, but they like athletes. They're going to take him, and I was wrong again. So
then the 12. This is the Cowboys.
The 12. The Cowboys.
To be right.
Tedero McMillan was gone, and I'll tell you this: had I picked him, let's just say I picked him at 8 earlier and got that one right. I would not have picked Tyler Booker in this spot. And I blame Mickey Spagnola because he had me convinced they weren't going to take a guard that early. I was wrong. And about the team I know the most about. So that one is a double sting right there. Kelvin Banks, wrong about that one.
You picked, yep, you went 9.
Yeah. Then finally, I was right again. Tyler Warren to the Colts worked out perfectly. He might even wind up being their quarterback because he might be better than the 2 clowns they've got in there right now because he ran out of the Wildcat a lot. Then I
this is going to get long and
long.
yeah.
So
I know, I'm gonna the same thing.
I'm just gonna rapid fire right now. Got the position right. They went edge, but they took Jalen Walker. Then Matthew Golden, nope, too early for him.
Which I will say, I think, Shedeur just had to wait, and there were a couple other guys that just had to wait and wait. Matthew Golden had to wait a while, but he got the coolest moment of the entire draft.
Yes.
Absolutely,
he did.
I would rather wait and be picked and make $500,000 less and have that moment in front of the Green Bay faithful than have been picked 5 picks ahead and make $500,000 more and not have that moment.
Yeah,
what a lucky thing in some ways, but that was cool.
And the crowd loved it. It wasn't one of those picks that they weren't real thrilled about.
And his new boss got to make it.
Well, it was a wide receiver. That was the whole thing. It was a wide receiver, and they'd never draft wide receivers, which is crazy. And then so it just so happens here's this wide receiver who's been sitting in the green room all night, probably wondering am I going to get drafted? And then here you are, and you get drafted by the hometown team, and it's a wide receiver. So as soon as they heard that, they erupted because they're so thirsty for a player, right? Like a playmaker. And so, it was a perfect storm for Matthew Golden and the Packers to have this big draft moment.
Aaron Rodgers kept begging for wide receivers, remember?
Do you know who the last one was?
Devontae Adams?
No.
Was he even drafted by them?
No, he wasn't drafted in the first round. It was
Scantling?
No, it was Javon Walker, 2-time Paul Catalina keg party attendee.
Oh,
Nice.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's my fun little draft fact.
Yeah, when Mark Murphy said it's for the first time in 2002, they just were thrilled as a wide receiver.
My roommate was one of the student trainers on the team. Javon really took to him and came to a couple of our keggers.
Nice.
It was nice.
Very nice.
He was very well behaved. So
did he last longer than you did?
No, he ever did.
Okay.
I was a champion in those days.
Did he ever do
No, he did not do a keg stand.
Okay.
He I don't think I ever saw him drink a beer.
Whoa.
I don't think I ever saw him drink a beer.
Okay, good.
But Bengals, Mykel Williams, I had him going there. They took Shamar Stewart. Then I was just off by 1 pick on this one, so I started feeling good about myself.
Got cocky.
Yeah, Gray Zabel goes here instead of Emeka Ibuka. He went the next pick, which meant that he and Nick Emanwari, wrong, and Omarion Hampton, wrong, Jackson Dart, wrong. So just rapid fire him, Garrett. And they gave you some X's here.
I think the button's worn out.
Yeah, the button's worn out. Garrett's worn out.
It's like an annoying person delivering something at your door. Yeah.
Colston Loveland, I was wrong. Omarion Hampton went here.
Loveland went really early.
Jahdae Barron, wrong. He went to Denver. Malachi Starks just missed it by 3 picks. Josh Simmons didn't go there. Traded out. That's where Jackson Dart went. Jahad Campbell went to the friggin' Eagles. They traded up 1 spot to get him, and everything works out for them. They're just, they just sat there and they're like, we'll jump up in front of him to make sure that nobody else gets him, and then we'll get him later.
I wonder about that because they gave up a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
And they get him. He's an active linebacker, so they just have more great playmakers on defense. But Kansas City was in front of them. If they knew Kansas City was not going to take him, but their concern was that somebody would jump them at the last second. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the case. So they went up and got him. Then there's Tyler Booker. That was wrong. He was gone at 12.
No, because the Ravens always just sit there and wait for the right pick, and they take it.
Yeah.
Malachi Starks.
Yeah, Malachi Starks. James Pierce Jr. did go around this area, but the Falcons traded back in to get him. Walter Nolan was already off the board to the Cardinals. And a guy I liked, Josh Connerly, that was my second pick to go here for the Commanders. Didn't get that right.
Cliff Kingsbury, you hear this story? Actually laid a note on the desk of the general manager that take the offensive tackle from Oregon, laid it on his desk, had not seen him since the draft started, and of course the GM then had fun with that.
Yeah.
He even showed the note.
Well, I mean, it's not super exciting when you're drafting offensive linemen all the time, but when you know it's a guy who's going to protect your all-star quarterback, it definitely makes it a lot easier to swallow. When you'd love to see flashy players, but you need to protect the flashiest player that you have and the whole cornerstone of the franchise. So it made sense to draft him. Everybody seemed to like the pick. Like they felt like he was the guy that dropped, if anything. And at this point, I'll trust their draft strategy because it worked out really well a year ago. And it's at least nice to feel like you have competent people who are making the picks for the team you root for. So that's been a new feeling these last couple of years, but man, I love it. It's been a long time since I've actually been confident in their draft moves and actually going like, oh wow, they look like they made a pretty good pick there. That's great.
Yeah. I knew that the Bills would go corner or wide receiver here because that was their biggest area of need. I thought there's no way you can resist a guy like Luther Burden. I was wrong. You can resist a guy like Luther Burden. Apparently, they took the fastest guy in the draft, Maxwell Hairston, cornerback from Kentucky, who was
the happiest guy all night for everybody but himself. Yeah, he was he was happy for himself.
Yeah, absolutely great.
Hugging everybody that was in the green room.
I would tell you, the Chiefs, I had really no idea what they would do. Like, what do you get for the man who has everything? Kind of a deal. But they did have trouble in the offensive line, so they went and got Josh Simmons. Nick Scorton, who I think is better, actually, than Shamar Stewart, still on the board, as where Shamar Stewart's off to Cincinnati. And then my last pick was my only trade I predicted because I'm a super smart guy. I picked Tyler Shuck coming back in. I don't think he gets past the Saints, who have the 9th pick in the second round tonight, but we'll see. And I posted my second and third round predictions with no trades, because that's even harder to predict.
Because you're a glutton for
Twitter.
punishment.
Yeah, just go ahead and say it. We're not going to grade those, but there is my draft. I got 4.
So Craig wins.
And I get partial credit to keep me out of detention.
Emery was second.
Yeah. But for comparison's sake, Garrett, we have so can you read these off? We did this. So we did 3 other draft experts: Mel Kiper, Matt Miller, and Dane Brugler.
Is Mel Kiper anymore an expert after last night?
I've been wondering the same thing.
So you say that, but Mel Kiper had how many right?
So Kiper had 12.
Kiper had 12 right.
Dane Brugler had 6.
Wow.
And Matt Miller had 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Paul wasn't terribly terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dane Brugler is probably the most respected out of those. I mean, I definitely think he's probably the most respected out of those 3. But yeah, I mean, that's I like your enthusiasm for it, and you obviously enjoy doing that. And a lot of people love this time of year. Last night was certainly interesting, and so I'm looking forward to watching tonight. And then I know tomorrow there will be a severe drop off because as much as you love it, like, man, the day drags on and there's just so many names and it's crazy. So tonight we'll have the rest of like the kind of the meat of the star names and all of that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Nicely done, Paul, even though it wasn't completely
you put yourself out
accurate.
there.
Yeah, I mean, good try. And I'll say the only other thing, and I know this has been talked about ad nauseum all day, I'd imagine, on all sports platforms, but my only other thought on the draft, and we were talking about this earlier, was, obviously Shedeur and the Jags coming up and getting Travis Hunter, and we didn't really touch on the Big 12. Turns out the Big 12 can very easily eclipse last night and have a better first round. I was asking yesterday at the end of the show of like, hey, do you think this is the best draft they have in terms of like 3 first rounders? Hell, they only ended up with 2 because Shedeur fell. So I could see next year with like Robertson and Levitt, and if there's some other guy I'm not thinking of, like they could easily eclipse that within a year, whereas I thought it might be a bit of a challenge. But, once Shedeur dropped out, 2 is not really much of anything. So
I looked at the top 100 prospects for 2 or 3 different sites, and there was a couple of guys from the Big 12, and neither one of them were quarterbacks.
I think that'll change.
Yeah.
My only other thing was the main thing, and this is what I'm actually talking about, was probably talk to death all day, but the walk to the stage was freaking ridiculous.
It was like
so stupid.
Bryce Cherry said from the Waco trip, he goes, it was almost like a WWE setup event.
No, it's like a WWE setup when it's WrestleMania and they have like the longest runway possible because it's the biggest event. But even then, that was last weekend. That was longer last night. Like, not even close.
Well,
it was longer.
Tyler Booker had to run a mile.
But the ones that ran it, it didn't feel like it. That was appreciated.
Yeah.
But like Cam Ward, I mean, like he might as well have been like on like skates with somebody pushing him really slow. That was like when Jake Paul slowly drove out to beat up an old man a few months ago.
Yeah, but that's who Cam Ward is. There's not a lot of flashing.
Well, I don't think he probably understood how far he had to go, actually.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there's like –
because you kept there were turns.
Yeah, they kept turning corners. Like, oh, he's almost there. No, he's not. He's still going. You got to go down this other corridor. And they're like, okay, well, he's at the – oh, nope, another corridor. And yeah, that was crazy how far back they had those guys to have to make that long walk. Like, not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but just really kind of awkward and a weird setup to have them have to go a half mile to get from the green room to the freaking stage. That was crazy.
Yeah, because Booker was so happy. You could see it. He was popping the wall, whatever. And then by the time he got to the stage with Goodell, I think he was hyperventilated and was like halfway out of his mind. What a great deal, though. You're right. It was forever. Like the amount of time and changes and where they were going from to get to the stage was nuts. Now, Will Johnson, I mentioned the knee issue. He's on the board. Mike Green, the edge from Marshall. There were issues about him and maybe very similar to what people thought in cases about Shedeur with his interview, his personality, whatever. Emin Wara from South Carolina was not drafted. And you heard Dockerman say that stunned him. Burden, Scorton, and Shuck, all of them are still on the board that are going to be, you would think, drafted without question, you would think, by the end of the night. Who else besides Shedeur out of that list is a huge name? Judkins? Milroe? I never thought he was going to be drafted until maybe tonight, if at all.
I mean, that was an awkward choice or kind of a weird choice when they announced the green room participants to have him sitting there, and we thought that he'd be the one that gets stuck there. It turns out he was, but the problem for not the problem for him, but the good thing for him was that everybody was so distracted by Shedeur that they weren't paying attention to that Jalen Milroe was still sitting back there. So, like, he caught a break. Instead of being green room guy, he was there and like, oh, yeah, Jalen Milroe's still there. I wonder if he comes back tomorrow night. But mostly everybody's just focused on the guy who wasn't there, who also wasn't getting drafted. I mean, those are some okay – Milroe's a big star name. Judkins is, but I don't think there's anybody.
Travion Henderson is somebody that gets some.
I think Shadore's the most polarizing for sure. That's probably the obvious thing to say. I don't know how many star names there are after that are like, oh my God, I can't believe they're still sitting out there. They're stars in college, but I don't know that it's a shock that they're still sitting there early round 2.
All right, Xavier Watts, Notre Dame safety. I thought he was going to be an unbelievable player. He is a good player, but he's kind of waiting out there, wondering what's going to happen with him. All right, do we have – great job, Paul, by the way. Again, you put yourself out there on the line. I don't know if I'd gotten 2, other than maybe Cam Ward at the top. Paul, should the Big 12 adopt the SEC's transfer rule? Yes, for fairness, 74%, and I completely agree. I wish all conferences would do that. I wonder if that would at least dummy down a little bit the numbers of transfers. In other words, if you transfer during the spring, you cannot, if you're an SEC player, go to an SEC team. That does prevent some things from happening. You can still enter the portal, though. No, keep the current rules, and then unsure, need more information.
Yeah, and I don't know how much they've actually discussed this or not. I just brought it up yesterday when we were kind of getting around the Nico stuff again and just talking about, Texas Tech picked up the Colorado center, and so that just all wound into one topic of, do you agree with the SEC's actual rule? I do wonder if everybody else started adopting it, is that when you see the lawsuits then come in? Then everybody's doing it. But I mean, if they could do it, I wouldn't blame Big 12 coaches for wanting to enact that. But I don't know. I'm kind of would need more info, I guess, as well. But on the surface, I like it. I just don't know what I'm missing by only looking at the surface.
Yeah, I like the again, it's just the one shorter portal window of you can't do it in the spring. You can do it in the winter when it makes way more sense. But yeah, I like that. I think it's it's good. And I think it also, it's just one of the like minor little things they can do to maybe make people think twice about doing this when they're doing it.
Well, it would get rid of not tampering, but it would get rid of tampering within your own conference.
It would get rid of a lot of it.
Yeah.
It would get rid of a lot of it because those are the people most familiar with your players, most likely. So
if you're from Texas and you get recruited by TCU, Tech, and Baylor, then two of those, and you went to Tech, then two of those schools are out of this in the spring.
To your point, this is only
Houston,
for the rule is only the spring window.
Yeah,
so
not the one in December. Yeah,
you could jump in December and go from Houston to TCU, no problem. You just can't do that in the springtime. So yeah, I'd be for this if I had to put down a vote. But
wonder why other conferences have not adopted that. And if we ever do get Brett Yormark on again, maybe it's going to be during the media days. I don't know when. But that would be a question we need to make sure we remember to ask him. Paxton, Paul, Scattaboo.
I hope so.
But that's going to be a tomorrow pick, right?
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the late third, though.
No, late tonight, but that's a good call. I mean, I hadn't thought about him much just because mine's tilted towards those we've been talking about so much, so the first rounders mostly. But yeah, that's definitely a big name that you didn't include that's out there that in this neck of the woods we're more familiar with. So yeah, that's a good call.
I think look, and it would make me go nuts if at 76 the Cowboys took Cam Scattaboo, because if they're loading up and you want to be power running, like I think he's the best power runner in the draft. Look, they're
going to take a long snapper.
Yeah. I did and look, there's a scenario here that plays out where if they don't have guys that they like, they're going to draft functionally, which is what you have to do. But I kind of get the Cowboys have a smaller draft board than most. And Will McClay is really good at this, so I don't – this is the one thing keeping them afloat. If the Cowboys didn't have Will McClay, man, the drafts would be way all over the place. They just really would be nuts. So
yeah, no, he seems to have calmed them down quite a bit.
But here's what I would like. I would like Will McClay to stay there, but I would like in Jerry's twilight years that we get him on cocaine, because I think he's gone boring. And I don't know how an 80-year-old man handles cocaine, and cocaine is bad, but I would like some cocaine Jerry decisions.
I don't know. I think cocaine Jerry probably has come and gone already. I
think
I
know.
And that might be what he's suffering.
I don't think his nose can handle probably anymore at this point, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Yeah, so that's a good point, Chris.
There was the one story, and somebody brought this up in the chat. We did Harmon, who was drafted. His mother had been put on life support. He was drafted last night. He was able to get to where she was in the hospital. I don't think it was hospice in the hospital, and was able to get to her, inform her that he had been drafted, or at least talk to her, and then she passed away. Which is it's a sad story, but also a loving story. So that was tough one to deal with in the end of it all. So there we are tonight, rounds 2 and 3 of the other poll. Thank you, Andrew Valade, for coming up with these. Which Texas high school football legend will thrive the most in their new NFL home? Johnny Barron, God, we always liked him. Did you see that? You guys see that somebody put up, the former Baylor Bear, and when he was committed to Baylor? No, he's a Texas player. Donovan Jackson, Genty at Vegas, and Cam Ward, the number 1 pick with Tennessee.
Look, Genty with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly is, I mean, that's exciting. I mean, that's going to be really good. I mean, and they have a lot of things to fill, and if they get some people in front of them, it can knock some people over. I think that'll be fun to watch. I text Q last night and said, "I hate you." That's just what I said. I said, "I hate you."
What did he say?
He said, "Ha ha ha." It's like, yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm like, yeah, I know you're thrilled.
Yeah, it'd be fun to be able to cover him, no question.
Yeah.
All right, now.
The friggin' party, they had all the kids at Frisco Lone Star. They had a draft cam on them on NFL Network, and they show it, and everybody's jumping up and down. I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah. Good for him. Good story about him. Craig found him when he was in 8th grade. Noticed him when he was actually, what was he, Craig, a freshman or whatever, Boise State with that Campbell Award. When we see you again, we'll know everything that occurs with the draft. Hey, don't forget tonight, 10:30, 365 Sports tonight on the CW. Garrett, well done. Andrew with the polls and all the other stuff he's slamming out on social media in different ways in the promotional stuff. Emery, thank you very much. And also, those of you who have been a part of the show today, but also this week and into the future, hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. Have a great weekend, everyone. For Paul, for Craig, I'm David Smoak. Good night on 365 Sports.